Fred Indimuli, karibu sana.
The news truly Stanley Nyeringita, as he has said, will be giving you how the roads are looking like, and not only Nairobi, just crossing over, we'll be giving you the latest, and I believe also in around Naivasha, the Mai Mahiu kind of highway, there is latest updates to give as well.
Yes, there's a developing story in Mai Mahiu area, something that we're still yet to put our finger onto, but our reporter, Willie Dennis Jiru, is there currently, and we'll be talking to him on phone to give us an update of what's happening there. There seems to be something that's going on, flood-related, but we still do not have the details. A lot happening. The death toll from the flood situation currently over 93.
Over 90, yeah.
Yesterday there was a boat that capsized somewhere near Garissa with about 56 people on board. 16 people have so far been rescued, but 37 people are missing.
Yeah.
So yes, so many things happening around the flooding situation. Yes, let's go straight to Mai Mahiu area where our colleague Willie Dennis Jiru is currently at. Willie Dennis, kindly tell us exactly what's happening. I know it is still dark in Mai Mahiu, but what are the scenes there?
Good morning, Fred. It's indeed a sad morning for the people of Mai Mahiu here in Nakuru County, where around 2 a.m., what is said to be a dam, but not as such, has actually brought destruction, and it's quite devastating here. The villagers and locals from this area are actually on standstill, gathered in groups, trying to consolidate together of actually what transpired at around 2 a.m. this morning. Nobody is certain of exact thing that happened here. It is dawn right now, and we begin to see at a distance, but just trying to paint to our viewers and the listeners of exact situation as it is here. We have boulders of trees plucked by the flash flood, and at around 2 a.m., the locals say that the rail line crossing over to Naivasha side and then Mai Mahiu Nairobi side has actually been cut fully, disconnected from its function, and just above it is Kiambu, where we have the Nakuru County border and Kiambu, and it's quite a steep descent by virtue of it is on the escarpment. So much of the water that had been flowing down had met some barrier at where the rail line was crossing, because it had to be lifted to a level that it is actually on a flat ground to enable it to move from one side to the other. So water percolated on that section until now. It had raised concern a few days ago. The locals here allude to that fact. Some of them even have pictures like 2 days ago, and they were raising the concerns that people must move from that place, because if it had indeed happened that the floods would continue, there would be a catastrophe. Right now, I'm standing just out in the outskirts of Mai Mahiu Naivasha Road, about 500 meters, and there is a village there on the upper side which is actually swept away. What I can confirm to you and our listeners this morning is that one woman has been confirmed dead, and she's there. I've been with the Red Cross team. They are saying they are waiting to mobilize the security team and other forces and the Naivasha, Nakuru County Disaster Management to be able to ascertain the situation. 4 people have been rescued along the trench and have been taken to the hospital here in Mai Mahiu. Fred, as the situation is a replica of one that is not of the same magnitude that happened around 2014. And everyone here, even the old people, say that they have not witnessed such kind of a disaster in the past years.
Willie Dennis, kindly update us on the traffic situation, because that's the old Naivasha Road. How is the situation on the road?
The situation is very wanting, Fred, actually. When I was getting here about an hour ago, I found a stretch of parked trucks and vehicles about 10 kilometers on Naivasha, Mai Mahiu route, and seemingly right now the situation could be even worse, and we could advise our motorists and those who are listening to us, if they have alternative routes, they could just use them to avert the crisis along this stretch. You understand that all vehicles moving to Narok from the western part of Kenya always opt to use Mai Mahiu Narok Road through to Kisii and then Bomet, all that side. But the situation is right now, vehicles are just grounded on the road, literally grounded, and even the ambulances had to stall at a very, very long distance from where the scene is actually it. And subsequently, Freddie, because I know we will be linking up with pictures now, because light is showing up, we will be able to collect more information and have pictures to try and show the situation as it is. We also have vehicles that have been swept and are held up by boulders. We have so many trees just swept away, and they are all over.
Okay.
And the village that was visible.
Will you final one, maybe, how is the police presence in that area right now?
Police presence, actually, a few of them are here, but they are mobilizing other quarters, because actually this is quite a duty. It's quite a call to duty for the police officers, Red Cross, and the disaster management of Nakuru County. And it is going to be hectic for them to access this place, seemingly because there is no access, because the two sides of the road have actually been taken over by trucks. And you know, a truck is not like a small vehicle. Even those who are on matatus on their way to Bomet, Narok, that route, and Mai Mahiu, actually all the vehicles are stalled on the highway.
Right.
Thank you, Willie Dennis, and we'll be back to you shortly for more updates from that area. And yes, what we're getting now is that there's a developing situation around Mai Mahiu. We are not so sure if it's a flash flood or mudslide situation. It's still very early in the morning, and Willie Dennis is there presently and will be updating us once dawn strikes properly, so that at least we can get video footage from there.
Plus also sound bites from the police, just confirming and telling us what actually is happening. We've opened that route, what he was talking about, the Mai Mahiu Naivasha route as well, just to get a glimpse of what I think somewhere around here.
I don't know why this map is not really showing, but this is a general area within Mai Mahiu, because what, according to the explanation Willie Dennis is giving us, is that transport along the old Naivasha road, either towards Mai Mahiu, from either side, coming from Nairobi or coming from Naivasha, it is at a standstill. Meaning that also traffic from Narok towards Mai Mahiu is also not moving because of what is happening in Mai Mahiu. So if at all you can use any other route to Nairobi, kindly avoid Mai Mahiu for now. But Willie Dennis says the traffic stretches back for kilometers on either side of Mai Mahiu. So that place right now is at a standstill. All right, and on the same vein, we can take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi. There was a situation at night along Kimende, along the main Nakuru-Nairobi highway. That seems to have eased out, and so far we can see it is green along Kinale area, Kimende, Kijabe. Yes, this was a strong maroon as at 10 midnight.
Oh, okay.
So right now it is much better, and yes, you can use that route. So for people who are coming to Nairobi from Nakuru, if you can avoid Mai Mahiu and use the main Nakuru-Nairobi highway, the better. Let's get into town now, into Nairobi town, and take a look at the traffic situation. And I can see already there's a bit of red at that section around Pangani interchange. That means that traffic is really building up and fast at this hour of the morning. So if you were using there, they expect some delays. The major tributary heading towards that is the Thika Road, and so far nothing much to report. A bit of a snarl up at Juja. So I don't know what's happening there, but one section of the road along Juja, next to Juja, has a bit of red, so there could be a standstill there. All the way, some sections are yellow, past KCA University, past Mathare so far, and then at Muthaiga. A bit of a standstill there, but nothing to worry about so far. The other major tributary into town is Mombasa Road. Let's take a look at Mombasa Road, all the way from Kitengela. Sections of yellow here and there, nothing much to worry about towards town, past Next Gen, past the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, all the way to town. So far, so good. Along Langata Road, even Langata Road is not looking bad. All the way towards Nyayo Stadium, it's looking good as well as Ngong Road. I'm looking for Ngong Road, yes. Ngong Road is here, and so far so good. Ngong Road is looking good as well. So nothing to worry about there. A bit of a snarl-up at Prestige Plaza.
Yes.
That section there is a bit slow this morning. So beware that around Prestige Plaza, but I guess it's because of the lights. Let's take a look at Jogoo Road. And Jogoo Road looks, yes, sections of red, especially at Makadara. And once you get to the City Stadium roundabout, and even getting into town, Landis Road is past Marikiti. It's already red. So yes, a bit of a slowdown just getting into town this morning. That's the traffic situation so far. We'll keep updating you, especially on the traffic situation, because it promises to change.
Oh, yes. And also, even as we transition into the weather, these are two things that are really intertwining, because even for the roads, the fact that they are impossible, yes, the fact that they're impossible right now, it will definitely affect the other. Let's take a look at what to expect for today, and we take a look at the X page for Kenya Meteorological Department. So this is a 7-day cumulative rainfall forecast as of yesterday, the 28th of April, around 9 a.m. all the way to the 5th. That's next week, I think next week on Sunday, the same time. So this is just, telling you. And they're also telling you an explainer here. So if 1 millimeter of rain is like having 1 liter of water spread over a square meter, then 100 millimeters of rain will be akin to having 100 liters of water covering that same square meter. It's a substantially large amount of rainfall, and it can lead to significant wetness, flooding, etc. So you can imagine, so just to have context of that, so this is a whole focused all the way to next week. The maroon and the red bits just on the central bit, the parts of Kajiado as well, parts of getting into Narok and all that, and also parts of the western would be getting millimeters as high, between 80 all the way to 100 millimeters. So that just tells you, that's like 100 liters.
That's flooding.
That's flooding.
Basically flooding.
Yes. That is what you really expect to see. On the eastern bit of the country, nothing major to really, to report on the same. And so this is what you really expect for the weather for today.
All right.
Oh, yes. And even as we could also tell you what to expect on today's diary. Even as we, get on that on the same, yes.
A quick look at the dailies this morning, and the Standard leads with that anatomy of a sick nation. That's a big headline on the Standard this morning. And we'll be looking at this. They basically talk about the crisis in the health sector. On the Daily Nation,
State to revise next budget by 350 billion cash shillings. Basically, a whole review of what experts are warning, what you might get to see.
Kaeni chonjo, bado hali si hali. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, masuala ya mafuriko.
Kwenye gazeti la The Star, why Ruto party rejig plan threatens ODM, a whole review of what happened on Friday, the first phase of the party's grassroots elections.
Matters Business, US fund loses 4-year tax battle from Java House sale. That's a big headline on the front page of the Business Daily.
But there's an interesting story now, the Business Daily, if you can head back to that. The whole Brent crude oil, and just saying you might actually expect higher fuel prices in the coming
by mid-month.
Oh yes, in the coming months, due to the whole matters what is happening in the Middle East.
On People Daily, floods tragedy. Yes, this is the biggest talking point. Nature's fury. Police and emergency services reveal that 90 people have so far died. Yes, that's a situation even across the borders in Tanzania. Just look, this is the front page of the Citizen. Just look at the situation on that road. Traders count their losses as rains ravage roads and markets. And you think this is a unique problem to Kenya? Tanzania is even worse. Look at that road. And on Mwananchi, they're talking about matters, workers' unions, mvutano vyama 19 dhidi ya tukta. Tukta, I think, is the equivalent of Kotu.
Of course.
And just as Kotu is facing trouble here ahead of Labor Day,
it's the same.
Even their equivalent, the Tukta, is having issues as well.
Oh, yes. Into Uganda now, they say Uganda to supply maize to Zambia, agreeing to supply about 500 million kilograms to Zambia,
Okay.
giving a huge boost to them.
Still in Uganda, on the New Vision, police foil 700 billion Ugandan shillings NSSF land fraud. Hata kule wanaiba tu pesa ya NSSF.
Oh, yes. And actually, even before we get to the diary, on Daily Monitor, there's a very interesting story on the very top scroll that says, in Mali, ice now costs more than bread as heat wave scorches. That's at the very top scroll, Palejo. So in Kenya, as you are here trying to look for very creative ways to chase away the cold, in Mali, they have quite the heat wave there, by the way. And ice is quite expensive than bread. So.
Interesting. Okay, those are the dailies this morning. And we'll be looking at them shortly. But first, let's get the day's diary.
On to today's news diary, just what to expect. On the first page, Kenya will be hosting the International Development Association, a replenishment summit in Nairobi, which began yesterday, and the event will be graced by President William Ruto, among other African leaders and other invited dignitaries. Let's cross over to the next page now for this one. And to the next page, this is a revised and an updated version. So the Ministry of Education second-term calendar was to commence today, but this one has been pushed and postponed all the way to next week on the 6th of May. We'll be giving you more details on that, but into the doctor's strike, which enters day 47 today, with KMPDU stating that they will not relent until the demands of paying up the medical interns and the 19 issues are really met, and just that one actually for paying the medical interns. So this even as the union is preparing for a peaceful demonstration, which will happen tomorrow. And finally, the Bombers of Kenya CEO Peter Gitaa Korea will be arraigned today after he was arrested by EACC yesterday, or rather last week, with the commission preferring to charge him with procurement fraud. That is the news diary. Into Today in History for you. Back in 2019, Ugandan pop star and opposition politician Bobi Wine was remanded to a maximum security prison after being charged over his alleged role in a street protest the year before. And that is Today in History. Our cue to get into a deep dive into the newspapers right in Kenya.
All right, a quick reminder of the big story this morning. The reopening of schools has been postponed. We're getting reports that quite a number of school-going children in school uniform have been seen heading to school. And it is important that we get this information out there. The Ministry of Education has already issued a circular postponing the reopening date to next week, the 6th of May. That will be next Monday. So yes, watoto wakae nyumbani. Quick look at the dailies this morning on the Daily Nation. A state to revise next budget by 350 billion shillings. Yes, remember it was to be 4.2 trillion bob. Now it's down just below 4 trillion. So it will be about 4.8, 4.9 trillion shillings. That's the budget you expect. Experts warn that the taxman's failure to hit revenue targets presents the government with no other alternative but to reduce its projected expenditure plans for the next financial year by up to 350 billion shillings. You know, 350 billion shillings is only about 40 billion shillings shy of what all the counties receive annually. It is a lot of money, and it will definitely present a problem. We'll be looking at this with the panelists later on. That's a big story there. Other stories, schools in flooded areas to remain closed. That story has an update that all schools countrywide, the reopening dates have been postponed. Heavy rains continue to wreak havoc. A picture there of flooded homes. This is in a flooded house in Mukuru kwa Ruben slums in Nairobi yesterday following heavy rains. On the top strip, Azimio leaders defend Atwoli. Yes, this week we're marking Labor Day. This is when Kotu comes back to the headlines. The opposition has warned the government against using the Private Security Regulatory Authority and its CEO to attack the veteran Kotu chief and destroy the trade union movement in the country. Yes, Arsenal yesterday won against Tottenham. It was a hard-fought win, 3-2, to remain on top of the league table.
The London Derby.
Yes, it is what is featuring on the back page as well. Arteta demands more as stylish Gunners stay top. City keep pace. Meanwhile, back home, AFC Leopards and Sharks storm Cup semis. Those are the headlines on the Daily Nation this morning.
The headlines of the Standard, Anatomy of Sick Nation. They say, irony of a country that spends an arm and leg to train its highly prized professionals but wants to dump them into penury after graduation while its poor citizens wallow in disease without timely treatment amid opulence among political elites. And they have quoted their President William Ruto as well as Cabinet Secretary Public Service Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria apparently says this is a guy who has just done his last cut. There is a continuous assessment test. We have budgeted for doctors. We do not have a budget for students. Wow. They also have quite a number of figures there. 3.5 million Kenyan shillings. Loan burden for doctors when they leave university and begin one-year internship. About 3.5 million. Also the cost of training one doctor in Kenya in fees. Other expenses mean it's even higher. And 600,000, the current fee for medical students per year. And 38,000, that's the medical student fee per year in the early 2000s. Into a review of the first phase of the UDA grassroots elections is reflected on the left scroll. And they say from failing gadgets to missing names of voters and candidates, aspirants say grassroots polls was decided elsewhere and winners just announced at polling centers. That is on page 14. On the top, they also make mention of a review of the country being in Kukopa. And they say, is government on Fuliza mode? What numbers show? That is on page 10. You can take a look at what the numbers say. Into the business pages, and Ruto hosts key Africa meeting on development funding. That will be happening as of today. And obviously, Arsenal thrashing into the London Derby. Now, I'm going to hope this is on, by the way.
Go to Sawa.
Go to Sawa. On to the next page, or rather paper.
All right, let's take a look at the Business Daily. U.S. fund loses 4-year tax battle from Java House sale. That's a headline there, but I think the most important story is what you're talking about, issues on the price of fuel. Escalating Middle East conflict to hit fuel prices in Kenya after 5 consecutive cuts. That is actually on the front page. An escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, what's happening with Iran, Israel, and Hamas, will push crude prices above $100 a barrel. And it's projected to hit 102. And that means that by mid of this month, the prices could go up. Still on the front page of the Business Daily, EPRA to audit 4,300 fuel LPG retailers in safety checks. They should do that. Savannah Cement property sale probed, and Carrefour sales dropped to 38 billion shillings on weak shilling. That's the front page of the Business Daily.
From the Business Daily, let's take a look at the Star. So I want to juxtaposition the big story on Daily Nation as well as now the one on the Star. So on the top, on the left scroll, they say state agencies failed to spend 223 billion Kenyan shillings. And they basically saying, so key government agencies are on the spot for failing to spend billions of shillings, and mostly donor cash and loans, which were meant for projects. So the end of the 2023 financial year, government agencies had not spent that amount, which is 223 billion Kenyan shillings, and the amount could be higher. So as much as there's this, Daily Nation also says that the state is to revise the next budget by 350 billion Kenyan shillings.
Okay.
So yes, interesting numbers Kenyans should be knowing as of today. Other highlights focused on this paper, matters floods, which is going to be the main focus for this entire week. Matters floods. When it rains, it indeed pours, just showing a number of gallery of photos from different parts of the country. But the big story is on a review on Friday's phase 1 of the grassroots elections. I say Raila party laughs off UDA polls, and its stronghold describes the elections as a joke. And I mean, Raila's party, that is, should be the Orange Democratic Movement Party, ODM. Just remembering what happened some years back and what they tried, and just laughing off at UDA and saying, hey, we know what happened on ours, so learn from us.
They've opted to go for consensus.
Yes.
Interesting. All right.
Into People Daily now.
On the People Daily, or Taifa Leo, whichever is closer. Kaeni chonjo, bado hali si hali. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Hali si hali, masuala ya mafuriko yanaendelea kunoga. Nasema wataalamu waonya mvua kubwa bado itanyesha, hivyo kila mtu akuwe macho. Na kuna picha pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa jamaa kijaribu kuokoa mali yake pale. Hilo ndio gazeti la Taifa Leo. Tuangalie People Daily.
People Daily floods tragedy, and they say, so People Daily has some numbers there that it has tried to highlight. They say police and emergency services reveal that 90 people have been killed, 21 reported missing, at least 29 injured by the rains that have affected 185,297 individuals. And these numbers keep changing, Fred. So we'll be going to see how things are going to be as of today. The government spokesperson, Isaac Mora, will be addressing the media today, I think around somewhere in Mombasa. And just obviously, we Kenyans are expecting the government spokesperson to be talking about the floods tragedy, among other
because a lot has happened even overnight, especially in Mai Mahiu. And this is a piece of news that we keep updating, that something is happening in Mai Mahiu. There appears to be an incident that resembles flash floods or a mudslide that we're still not sure what has happened. Information reaching us say there were flash floods in Mai Mahiu, and our reporter Willie Dennis is at the area. We're just waiting for some light to come up with a rising sun, just to confirm exactly how bad the situation is and the details, what caused it, because we do understand that that section of the road from Naivasha to Mai Mahiu, all the way to Nairobi, and from Narok to Mai Mahiu, it is totally at a standstill.
And obviously an advisory to the motorists, if you're applying most of the roads around that area, definitely you might really have to use alternative routes.
Avoid the Mai Mahiu section at all costs.
Oh, yes.
Right now. A quick look at the cartoons this morning. The Standard on page 18 has opted to use a real picture of the flood situation, not a cartoon today.
Oh, yes. They say the
pictures, danger zone.
They say pictures have 1,000 words.
Yes. And these are water levels which have risen at Mtoamawe River in Machakos County. Heavy rains have caused massive flooding in different parts of the country. And an image there of a bridge that is almost being submerged by water. The Daily Nation has a cartoon on page 17. And it talks about matters education and the fact that on one hand there's a promise of free education, but once the students show up to school, they're sent away and told, out, go get school fees. So, hiyo mambo ya free education kweli iko ama ni story tu?
And we're waiting to see that as of next week.
Oh, yes.
When schools actually reopen. We wait to see again if, as much as they've said schools are going to be reopening on the 6th of May, but then floods don't really know, and the whole weather pattern doesn't really acknowledge the fact that you have...
It is a tentative date for now, because either way, as government, you have to give certainty that, yes, now we postponed for a week.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if at all the situation changes, they'll have to revise it.
They'll have to revise it, definitely. A story that hasn't been, we haven't really talked about it, but Daily Nation as well as Taifa Leo, and I think the Star, have also focused on it, really, is what happened in Mombasa over the weekend. It was just a whole tiff between KDF officers as well as administration police. And the commentator there says, our disciplined forces, what are we learning from them?
And you know, this is not the first one, because even in Turkana we saw where I think there was a thief as well, and then some military officers were arrested and detained at a police station, and we are told that even the military went and stormed the police station and freed their colleagues. So something is happening within the disciplined forces, especially between the military and the police unit. And I saw a statement from the military saying it's being investigated and they shall take action on their officers as well.
Oh yes, but then we wait for more clarification on that. That is on the newspapers right now. Matters State of the Nation coming up with the Monday Gang.
Yes, today we are having three of them. Honorable Dr. Mombingaru, former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, will be joining us. Samuel Pogisio, former ICT Cabinet Minister, and Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, also a former town clerk for the city county of Nairobi. There will be a panelist this morning as we take a look at some of the politics and the situation that the country is currently facing. Do stand by for that and be part of the conversation as well online through X at TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya.
Oh yes. Just to also remind you, getting into our First Aid Monday, 9 to 10 as well as do it. We teach you in matters drowning. I'm one of those people who, if I'm in a swimming pool, in a huge pool of water, I cannot swim.
It's very interesting now, especially with the floods. What do we do when you're drowning? It's something you need to know. Oh, yes. Before that, we'll be having a conversation about NG-CDF, the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Do stand by for that conversation as well. Time now for a break. Morning Cafe will be back with more.
One of the most heinous crimes ever committed in Kenya that sent the country into shock.
In my forensic life, I've never come across such incidents around.
She told me that there was a friend who was leaving the country. They are going to have an early dinner.
I found texts indicating that time was running out. The intention was to ensure that there was no trace of this girl.
Watch how it all unfolds on Crimes Untold. Coming soon.
Don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once. Drew Houston.
We're going to be focusing on security.
It's very easy to get disappointed, and it needs a lot of kujitolea.
How do you deal with competition?
I believe the cake is big for everyone. Kazi yako inajiongeanga. Ukifanya tu kazi safi, you'll never sleep hungry.
Anyone wanting to get into security, surveillance of maybe property, get the simple knowledge of installing simple items at the basic units.
This Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Did you know that applying a cold press, such as a bag of frozen vegetables wrapped in a cloth, can help reduce swelling and pain from minor sprains and strains?
Introducing the whole new TV47.digital. A brand new way to immersive experience to news and entertainment. Enjoy uninterrupted live streaming of your favorite programs on TV 47 and Radio 47 on the go with our new mobile-friendly website. Experience the future of broadcasting. Visit www.tv47.digital or scan this QR code and stream your way to endless news and entertainment. Welcome to the home of untold stories.
One ingredient ice cream. Turn frozen bananas into one ingredient ice cream without any fancy equipment. Freeze bananas until they're solid, then pop them into the blender until smooth and custardy, and voila, one ingredient ice cream.
On the next episode of The Realtor.
Setting up an office is one thing that comes in one's mind anytime you think of business and an area of your personalized operations. But you know, it is not just about space that you need for you to set up this office.
So you consider the parking space, you consider the other different amenities around that place, like let's say the boardroom, the water supply, the electricity supply. Do we have a backup generator? Do they have like break rooms where people can take a break, go rest, you know?
What you need to do is to keep tuned on this Tuesday, because we shall be discussing things that you need to put to consideration when it comes to a modernized working space or office setup here on The Realtor.
Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. Richard Branson.
Explore Africa's inspiring legends. Stories of courage, resilience, and the indomitable African spirit.
I think as far as Africa is concerned, music cannot be for enjoyment. Music has to be for revolution.
What was really important was payback time to nature.
The environment is everyday issue. It's the air we breathe. It's the water we drink. It's the food we eat. And we can't live without these things.
Faces of Africa on TV 47.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. Time now for the State of the Nation. My name is Fred Ndemuli. And before I introduce my panelists, a quick reminder of some of the stories we're following this morning. One of them is that the Ministry of Education has postponed the reopening date for all schools, all primary and secondary schools countrywide. They were supposed to go back today. They will now do so on the 6th of May, that's next Monday. Once again, the Ministry of Education has postponed the reopening of schools to the 6th of May because of the flooding situation. Another piece of news that you're following in Mai Mahiu, it is a developing story. We're still yet to get all the details, but we do understand there is an incident, a major incident affecting that area, probably flash floods that have rendered that section impassable. The road between Naivasha through Mai Mahiu towards Nairobi is totally at a standstill right now. Vehicles and traffic are stretching for kilometers on either side of Mai Mahiu. We do understand that also the road from Narok town towards Mai Mahiu is also at a standstill because of the same. The incident, or what exactly has happened in Mai Mahiu, we are yet to fully understand. We do understand some people have already lost their lives because of a possible flash flood situation. And we do have some pictures there. I'm informed we're getting images. Yes, those are some of the images we are receiving from Mai Mahiu as we speak, and we'll be getting more. You can see whatever happened Some trees have been uprooted. We are made to understand that even vehicles have been swept away by floods, and entire villages have been displaced in that area. A number of people are feared dead as well. Now, reporter Willie Dennis Njiru is there. He'll be updating us on what exactly is happening. Yes, very disturbing photos there, you can see. And we're still yet to comprehend what exactly the situation is. Is it flash floods or is it a mudslide? We'll be getting more details from there. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio Honorable Dr. Ngaru. It's good to see you safe and sound. Karibu sana TV 47. Dr. Ngaru is a former MP of the East Africa Legislative Assembly.
Thank you.
Next to Dr. Ngaru, we do have Philip Kisia, former town clerk Nairobi. He's a leadership and governance expert. Also good to see you in studio, safe and sound.
Thank you.
Samuel Pogisio, former ICT minister, is also with us. And I think the fourth gentleman, Kipruto Rapkiru, sent his apologies. He couldn't be able to make it. He's out of town this week. And so the rest of them are here. And asanteni sana kwa kuja. Of course, the biggest talking point is a flooding situation. And a lot has been said about the government response. Yet we do understand that this situation is not unique to Kenya. If you look at the front pages of the dailies in Tanzania as well, the situation is more or less the same. And deaths, probably the death toll in Tanzania is even higher. So, yet questions have been asked about the authorities' response to this situation, both in Nairobi and nationwide. And one may wonder, are we being a bit unfair, probably to the governor of Nairobi or the national government, in as far as our judgment of their response to this crisis is concerned?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is also good to find you safe. We all come from different directions and we are worried. So when we meet and we find ourselves safe, we thank God for it and we hope for a better week. This is a situation that is not new. And therefore first of all, I want to say Pole to the hundreds, because there are many, hundreds of Kenyans that have lost life, to their families, to their loved ones. As I watched the media reporting different kind of incidences, I also saw carelessness of individual carelessness, where we asked to be careful about driving through a bridge that you are not sure of, and other incidences that you can actually say, this is sheer madness. How can one? But about the government being prepared, it's a long story. We've had such situations before. The question is, do we ever learn as a government, as a local authority, as a county authority? Do we ever learn? I know we have had a committee to prepare for disaster, be it floods, be it fires, be it anything. And I think they're always caught off guard. Mm-hmm. And that is a worrying situation. I sympathize with the governor of Nairobi. I work in Nairobi, but I don't live in Nairobi. He could have done better. Mm-hmm. But I think we are out to bash him for things that are out of his control. And I think this is not the time to actually beat him senseless. It's time to come around him, mm-hmm. and talk to each other and say, where do you want me to help you? Where do you want to help? My colleague here, Philip, I'm sure he has gone through it. He must have gone through that. You don't do a local authority and you are so lucky for the time you are there, nothing like that happens. It happened to me, it happens to others. But we have different ways of responding to crisis at individual level. Okay. There are people who are overwhelmed, that their thinking just evaporates. Others are tough. I will tell you something. It happened in my municipality once.
A flooding situation?
Yeah, a flooding situation. And before I would get my way, I just closed the office, closed myself inside the mayor's parlor, cried and prayed. Because I didn't know what else to do. You see, they are laughing at me. But then after that, you remember you occupy the leadership position and you call others around you and say, how do we go about it? You cannot do it alone. So we could do better. Let us stop bashing the governor. Mm-hmm. Come around him. Maybe those who work around him know him better. Even if he has locked himself inside his own house, Philip and company, please go for him and tell him we got a solution. Thank you.
Well, at least, because floods are all over the country, but we're not seeing specific governors being blamed for the situation in those areas. But in Nairobi, the Governor Sakaja, seems to be taking a lot of flack, especially on things that probably could be seen as out of his control. The rains are everywhere, including in Dar es Salaam, including in Uganda. But we seem to be pointing fingers more at Sakaja. Do you think it's possible for one man to be in control of all this situation? You've been in that position in Nairobi.
Fred, thank you, and good to see you this morning, my colleagues. But first of all, let me pass my condolences to 80 to 100 people, Kenyans who've lost their lives through this disaster. You know, it is sad even to lose one life. So when you lose about 100 Kenyans, it's a really huge number. So my condolences. I think, yes, Mumbi and myself have found ourselves in similar situations. And as Mumbi says, it depends on how you manage. But in this case, I think the question we're asking, who bears the most responsibility? And why is there a focus, in our case, Kenya, on Governor Sakaja? Nairobi is a capital city. Everything that happens in this country happens in Nairobi. So Nairobi happens to be the mirror of the republic. And there's normally a saying that if Nairobi doesn't function, if it stops functioning, the entire region is affected. Forget about Kenya, the entire region, East and Central Africa. So therefore, Sakaja finds himself in that situation. He's a man who is in charge. My only concern is, and I don't want to blame Governor Sakaja, because the flooding situation is beyond his control. I mean, it's massive. You can see the destruction of human life and property and what have you. It's massive. And as you said, it has happened across East Africa. In fact, in most of the parts of the world, there's been flooding cases in Dubai. Yeah. I saw the other day in Malaysia, I think. So, I mean, it's something that's happening, is cutting across. The question is, in our case, I remember last year, when again we had been warned by the meteorological department. Instead of preparing for it, some people, and I say this with a lot of respect and humility, because I come from a very, very religious background. Some people decided to pray, okay? So that time, it was not as serious as now. But the meteorological department had sent a warning shot. Now, from that time, last year, about same time, where the president was saying, this thing was to happen, but because we prayed and God listened to our prayers, okay, the numbers were not excessive.
They were taking credit for the higher than normal rainfall.
Now, the question is, from that time to this time, were they still praying? And if they prayed, did they pray for disaster? That is a question that we must be asking. My point being that we have a department that has served us very well, the meteorological department. They had already sent us warning shots. They had told us to prepare for the last almost 9 months. That time, at least there were billions of money, billions of shillings that the governments and the county governments set aside for disaster, which it didn't happen. Leave alone them telling us what that money did. Now, 7 months down the line, we are faced with a similar situation. We have not prepared for it. There are short-term and long-term measures that you can take to mitigate these challenges. Short-term, unclogging our drainage system, completely. In readiness, you don't start unclogging when it's happening. You do it before it happens. So you prepare in advance. You take those steps to make sure that it is not as severe as we are currently experiencing. Okay. Long term, I left office. I was in office for 36 months. I left office 12 years ago. We left this city with a master plan to deal with all these things that we are talking about. It is sad that 12 years later, we're in the third, we're actually in which, the third cycle of devolution. Yes. We have billions of shillings have been transferred to the city of Nairobi. I think the city of Nairobi, just from the national government, they probably have receiving close to 100 billion. Mm-hmm. Now, what has that money done? Where has it gone to? Okay. They could not even get some of it and partner with development partners to now improve and have a sewer system that can contain such a disaster. Okay. Those are the questions that must. And finally, on that one, of course, again, the same department has said, now you're experiencing heavy rains, you are likely to face drought very soon. Now you're coming from very heavy rains to drought. Okay? Now we're crying about rains. Soon we'll be crying about drought. Our animals will be dying. People will be dying of hunger. So let us now learn to plan, and not just to plan, but to act on the plans that we have.
Bwana Pugisio, it was said that the government plans, yes, but more to get ready to react after the disaster. It's not really to plan ahead to avert disaster. And probably that's where the problem is, that yes, right now we made to understand that there is about 1 billion shillings that have been made available for helping victims of the floods. But there was no planning, especially in Nairobi, of ways to avoid the kind of disaster we've seen. Could that be the problem?
Well, first of all, good morning, and thank God that we are okay. Let me tell you, the only thing that happens in this country, which is for sure, is that whenever you produce money, people want to flood their pockets. That's all they do. And so that the disaster in Kenya begins with that. Everybody goes to office to try and flood their pockets, their bank accounts. And that's why in 5 years only, you move from an ordinary person to a billionaire. And how do you do that if it is not through lining your pockets with public money? It's also true that the city of Nairobi is where the most news is made. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why probably Governor Sakaja is in that kind of limelight, because what else do you talk about? Where do the most sensitive people live? It's in Nairobi. I know that there are blackouts, that there are floods, everything is happening within the city of Nairobi. And if you are the governor of Nairobi, you definitely will have guns trailed on you. And you definitely have to expect criticism and so on. But unfortunately, some of the criticism come from quarters that should be answering the questions themselves. There should be no difference when it comes to disaster in the country. There should be no difference, no blame apportioned, because national government and the city or the devolved government at that time converge in disasters. We all converge. Because the city doesn't have their own police, the city doesn't have their own, security people. It is and this becomes a security issue. Every time you have disasters like this, you must involve your security forces, your police, everybody comes into play. So I'm hoping that, but then the question that has been asked is, whatever happens to us, why we forget things so quickly? Because this Nairobi has gone through these things so many times, okay? This country has gone through this. We know the rivers which are going to burst their banks. We know the routes that rivers take.
Including the waterways that have already been blocked.
Exactly. So I don't understand how we think and then forget. So, question is, since the last disasters, the last flooding in Nairobi, haven't we identified our weakest points? Haven't we identified the places within our drainage which need to be attended to immediately to release the most water out of the situation? So if we're not answering those questions, then we are not prepared to deal with the situation if it happens again. And why, since 12 years, as my friend here says, there is a master plan that tells you exactly where those weak points are. So I do believe that we can actually help this country if for once we also become vulnerable and say, the people of Nairobi, the people of Kenya, the international community, please, this one I can't manage alone. Okay. Can I get help? Well, we could be seeking international help for this one. Because actually it's a very big disaster. When you talk of numbers, nearly 100 people already reported, and there are many who are not reported. Happening in other parts of the world. So this is the time to actually say, hey, it's a disaster. It's become a national disaster. We call for international help. We call for experts. We need to resolve this problem once. The one thing that I noticed, even just within a short time of floods, our roads are already damaged. It also reveals, how we build our roads, and also reveals the cost of corruption in construction. So you see all these things are coming to us now. By the way, immediately after this, you drive in the city center now, and roads just become already damaged. Very, very damaged. So yeah, I agree with you. We need not to apportion blame right now, and also not to dig any further. I think we should not also take on too much. If we just want to focus on drainage, let's focus on drainage and remove the water from the surface. We can also have, the international community, or the people responsible for medical care, whatever it is, supply people with nets, with blankets, and all those things. We need government to act. I heard the deputy president saying they have set aside 1 billion shillings for this kind of things. And again, it's always easy kupanga, and to set aside. But to really make sure money gets to the people and gets to the real serious areas is not an easy thing.
Okay. Yeah. I want us now to focus on something that's still happening now with the situation in Nairobi. And this flooding situation may have exposed the underbelly of Governor Sakaja. Yesterday we had the deputy president saying that himself and the president, they'll now pay more attention to what's happening in the city. And he said, quote, Nairobi is too important to be ignored. Together with President William Ruto, we have agreed to take a keen interest in Nairobi, and we will help restore her glory. We are not doing this just because we have voters in the city, but we are also stakeholders. We've seen this kind of attempt at intervening in the situation in Nairobi when Governor Sonko was governor. And what happened with the NMS and everything else. There's always a debate that Nairobi needs to be managed in a different way by a different entity. And could we be looking at more of the same this time around? That yes, even beyond the flooding situation, there are other obvious failures of the current administration in Nairobi. But this declaration by the Deputy President cannot be ignored. Are we looking at a possible intervention by the national government into the running of this city?
Fred, you've got a very good eye. I think that's where we are going. But before I comment on that one, and picking up from my colleagues about the Nairobi Master Plan. There are details in that master plan about how vulnerable Nairobi is as a city. I'm not an engineer, but from way back during the colonial days, it has been established that the structural location of Nairobi has issues. Fortunately for me, I have traveled around even on my working tour, and I have known governments that have been brave enough to say this is the problem, it's a structural problem, and we are going to relocate our capital from this place to this. It has happened in Tanzania, from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma. It has happened in Malawi, from Blantyre to Lilongwe, and we can go on and on. But the history of Nairobi, and I'm sure Philip is here, he knows better than me, that there is a problem on the location, of Nairobi. And we have expansive land, and a decision of brave men of wisdom who can take advice at cabinet level. We can decide to offload. Instead of putting the pressure on Nairobi to move maybe to higher ground and that kind of thing, I leave it there for the time being. Okay. But coming back to the issue of the statement by the Deputy President that now they are going to take keen interest whatever is happening in Nairobi. It's very telling, extremely telling. They've just realized because of the floods. No way. Probably and other issues as well. No, we are better than that. In fact, I see it as a situation. The situation of floods has given them a hallelujah, moment. That now, even if we go in, everybody is tired. The failure can be seen from all quarters. And then from the event that he was speaking, it tells that it's a hallelujah moment. Mm-hmm. For such a serious statement, from where I see it, it needs a different setting, and not that one. And therefore, for me, it's a political decision, mm-hmm. And very soon we are going to see the implications, maybe of another NMS. Yeah, mm-hmm. It could be that. But if I were them, I wouldn't do it from that political point of view. Yes. There are other avenues of even looking for Akina Philip and others who, and even the former person from the NMS who was there, those professionals coming together, being a part of the disaster management. But it would appear, Bwanakisia, that Governor Sakaja, out of his own acts of commission or omission, has finally managed to put himself into a very tight corner politically. He's a UDA member, but has been having dalliance with ODM. And probably that is what has caused some discomfort for him. And now
all factors have come and presented themselves for people to hit back at him. What is your assessment of this?
Well, let me say this, and again, I think viewers and other people, before I dive into your question, sometimes they say, okay, why do you talk about the challenges? Why can't you provide solutions? The solutions, I'll tie the solution that I'm giving to the answer that I'll give you on the issue of politics. One, it is the same UDA leadership that gave us Sakaja and they presented him as the best option we have for this city. They must have known what they were doing. It is their baby, they cannot throw their baby away now under the bus. But it is the same president who is talking about affordable housing without corresponding infrastructure. He's just building houses haphazardly, unplanned, okay? Those houses that are being built on green space. And I can tell you, if these rains were there and you have sufficient green spaces, leave alone just drainage, that water will drain into that green space. But now, even the little green spaces that we have are being taken away for the so-called affordable housing. Number two, it is the same government that even supported Sakaja's idea of building high-rise up to 75 floors without the necessary infrastructure. These are people who actually do not understand. They have no appreciation of how a city should be managed. And I don't blame them. You know their history. You know, I don't think they came to the city the other day. So I can understand where they're coming from. They're not trained in that area. They've come from other places. They have come to our Nairobi. We are the real stakeholders of this city, born and bred here. But so you're encouraging buildings all over, concrete. You're not building infrastructure. Don't use Governor Sakaja as the scapegoat of the challenges that the city is facing. Now back to your question. I think it is very sad for UDA to attempt to treat Sakaja the way they are treating him. Because I would say that, you know, these people are actually dancing on people's graves. People are dead. And instead of coming up with concrete solutions, you are playing politics on this matter. UDA is playing politics. Because even if you remove Sakaja and bring somebody else, would the problem, would it have been solved in the near future? No. Now, Sakaja is also playing politics. Because how do you run this city without ODM? How? It would be stupid for you to imagine that you can run the city of Nairobi without ODM.
But
you'll be impeached.
Is that what he's paying for right now, with the kind of backlash you see,
of course,
especially from
yes,
UDA?
Of course. And, you know, they must face reality. Now that there's a form of a handshake, or whatever it is, they must allow also this young man to do some form of handshake so that he can survive. The reality of politics in Nairobi is that you cannot run this city without the support of ODM. You'll be out of office sooner than later. So Sakaja is also playing politics. But for me, it is extremely sad that they would want to play politics when people are dying from a disaster. And I'm not of the idea of bringing NMS for two things. For two reasons. The first reason is that you Nairobians and Kenyans are the ones who have voted for this person. You voted for this political party. So please go through the pain so that next time you can learn. Secondly, military have got their place. The defense forces are efficient, effective. But are we going to misuse the defense forces anytime we have a problem that we've created ourselves? We run to the military? The military have a specific role. And this is not as a disaster that we are calling in the defense forces. This is a creation of ourselves. We've created a problem. So let us deal with this problem.
But Bonapugisio, you served in a cabinet with the late Mutula Kilonzo, who was then in charge of Nairobi Metropolitan Development. And one may wonder if that is probably the way to go, because the suggestion is that the national government, it may be a very subtle suggestion, but it would appear that is a direction we could be taking, that the national government could be looking to intervene in the running of Nairobi. This discussion has been there over and over, with the introduction of NMS, possibility of Nairobi Metropolitan Development. Probably it is a discussion we should have, that Nairobi needs, even as Dr. Ngaru suggests, probably a relocation of the city and a change in how the city is run.
Well, thank you. I think the situation during that time was to try and create the Greater Nairobi metropolis, which was bigger. It would have to take land or space from Kajiado, from Machakos, from Kiambu, and so on, to try and run a bigger city and plan for that city. And in fact, right now, the flooding and the situation here would have actually been dealt with comprehensively in the metropolis, that metropolitan thing. So there was a big planning, there was a big document that we launched, which means, as far as we're concerned, truly, Kenya has no shortage of plans. Kenya has no shortage of what you could call solutions. In print, there are so many. Imagine during that time, everything was covered. When the late Mutula was handling. Everything about how to run a city, how to build a city, how to manage these problems in a city is there. That plus the master plan that Philip and his team put together, that should be able to guide the city. So I just want to sit there and wait there and say, as long as people want to introduce politics in the middle of a disaster, there is something sinister about that. And if you really want to handle a situation like this one, you should free the country of politics at this particular time. Let us deal with these people whom you find that water has gone into their homes. They are marooned, they cannot come out. People who are sitting on the roof of their house waiting for help. People who cannot cross from one place to another. People whose electricity is gone. People who, actually there's one place where the people who live above in the flats are marooned in there because down here they cannot come. So what are you doing? Those are the kind of things we should be seeing stories about that.
Are you saying there's no space for that discussion on probably changing the way Nairobi is run at this time?
It is in the middle of a crisis. That's not the time to discuss changes like that. Right now, let us fight this monster which is here. Let us learn from the world. In any case, truly, if you have been all over, if this city can solve it, we can solve it. Let's see how other cities do solve these things. And we have sent people for benchmarking of how to deal with these things to various cities. They have seen it. It's about time to say, what do we send people to benchmark on if they cannot come and implement? So there is a bottleneck. That bottleneck is what we want to see. Who is it who is holding the resources necessary for this infrastructural support? Who is the person who is holding or blocking us from achieving what we're supposed to achieve? We should be asking ourselves those questions. Is it national government? Is it the city of Nairobi? And as has been said, there is enough financial resources within the city of Nairobi to deal with their own problems. But even if they didn't have enough, the national government has the mandate to even lend more money to Nairobi. But the problem is, do we have the money as a country? Or do we have the money? What is the situation, the financial situation? Currently, the balances in the books of our government, who knows what it is, right? Yeah, so I would like to implore that we leave out the politics. I've seen everybody now entering the fray of the relationship between the DP and the governor of Nairobi. You had people like Atwoli now have joined in. People like reading different sinister motives in all these statements that have been made. And as you know, Kenya, all of a sudden we are now doing almost tribal thing. This is our person, that's our person. And that is what destroys people and does not put solutions on the table. Because right now we need everybody, Sakaja, the DP, everybody to work together for now to slay this monster which is flooding and the disaster that comes with it. Can somebody speak to this people to say we are leaders? I remember sometimes back when I think it was Kidero and Shebesh fighting in the city, and they were told, go sort it out, go agree on certain things. I think these two must begin to look beyond their own political survival and just look at how to help the people today. Okay. You saw the disaster now in Mai Mahiu. That adds to our problem. That's no longer Nairobi.
That's actually Nakuru, at the border between Kiambu and...
Exactly. So now shifting there, the national government again must also look at that. So leave Nairobi, let us solve Nairobi, but we're also dealing with a national disaster. Okay. It's a big national disaster, so I don't know.
It's a very interesting conversation now, especially with that statement attributed to the Deputy President that he, alongside the President, have agreed to take a keen interest in Nairobi and they will help restore its glory. And he says he's not doing this just because there are voters here, but that he is a stakeholder. He went on to say he owns homes here and that his children live here as well as his businesses. So it is a wait and see that it will be interesting to see what happens, especially after that statement by the President. Now, Bwana raised an issue about the country's fiscal standing, and probably could move to that now. And it's what is a big story on the front page of the Daily Nation. State to revise next budget by 350 billion shillings. We've been talking about how ambitious the next budget is, 4.3 trillion shillings, and this would have been the very first time we're getting to that level. But experts warn that the taxman's failure to hit revenue targets presents the government with no other alternative but to reduce its projected expenditure plans for the next financial year by up to 350 billion shillings. If you look at that figure, it is about only 40 billion shillings short of the entire amount shared by all counties in a year. It is a huge factor, if you may consider this budget. This is not something to ignore. This alone speaks to the state of our finances as a country. We had big plans, and now we are going to cut 350 billion shillings. That will mean something drastic. Probably the nation will be at a standstill in as far as development is concerned for a longer period. Dr. Ngaru.
Fred, the first time we mentioned about the budget, we did say we think there's a problem in the budget. I remember after that, everybody is saying, how do we cut? One of them was the salaries for civil servants. We even had a conference on how to bring the budget down by addressing the wage bill. Now we are coming to have the state now revising the budget by 350 billion. I wish them luck, but I don't see it happening. It's just going to be on paper, like everything else. I tend to think that there's no seriousness in it. How do you revise a budget, yet just the other day, maybe a day or two, I saw the leader of majority talking about buying a new presidential jet. I mean, some wild things. So personally, I kind of have given up on the many things that come out of the statements from the executive. And when I say executive, it's from the top to the bottom of the executive. And my take in this is that if they can say they will cut by 350 billion, maybe, I don't know. They know that they had exaggerated and they're trying to remove the areas that they think they can touch without upsetting what they had planned for themselves, not for the country, but for themselves.
Okay.
I have a lot of issues. I don't know, because I think we have been, Kenyans, not only us, Kenyans have been talking and saying how the president can do things. Does he listen?
Okay.
Thank you.
Because the issue is Kenyans know that they're paying more as far as taxation is concerned. And we've talked here previously about this government's ambitions. And we said probably they need to tame some of the ambitions. If at all we're in dire straits, it's not the time to go overspending. And 4.3 trillion shillings sounded a bit over the top by any standards. It would look like a very reasonable move. But there definitely will be consequences, because this document had already been presented to the Houses of Parliament, the budget estimates. And one would imagine that by slashing 350 billion shillings, there's a lot that we probably were looking forward to that will never see the light of day. Wanakisi.
Fred, a very interesting question, because day before yesterday, I happened to have a discussion with Edgar Manasseh, the first Commissioner General. He's actually Commissioner General creator of KRA. And the way he explained to me, he said, we have capacity to collect even 5 trillion shillings. Okay? And he explained. And I sent the president a message. He has not even bothered to respond. Said, there's somebody here who created KRA, who can help you raise more revenue, more through taxation, without burdening Kenyans. So the solutions are there. The people who have done it before are still around, and they can help this country. So 4.3 trillion, yes, maybe it was quite ambitious, but according to the people who have been there, these are things that are possible. But let us now look at the budget that the Kenya Kwanza government had actually proposed, 4.3 trillion. Now they have found themselves in a situation because, the agency mandated to collect taxes is most unlikely able to hit the target. So, of course, the reasonable thing to do here would be to review your budget downwards. And in reviewing this budget, I've said before and I'll say it again here. It's very simple. Because we are likely to raise that amount of money, we must raid areas which don't produce. You spend, but we get nothing in return. The first place that we must raid, and if President William Ruto is serious, is his own budget. He cannot spend 9% of our collections on luxury. Like my sister said, they want to buy a new jet. Is it time of buying a new jet? Yet Air Force One, which flies the most powerful man on earth, is over than 30 years old. Our equipment came into operations in 1995. So in terms of age, in fact, in terms of miles, maybe Air Force One has done more miles than Harambee One. Okay? So I would raid his budget. And by raiding his budget, I can, if they give me an opportunity, without compromising his comfort, I can see there's already 80 billion. There's this thing they have introduced called CAS. A very useless thing. Even if I was given, I will not take. At least for now. Because Lead Mengich said that by having these characters called CAS, they will impact on us. I don't know what the impact is. There's some processes. But from our own estimations, these guys are going to consume 10 billion. Is that money that we can afford to spend right now? No. The other one is the first lady, second lady, other ladies. That money should be set aside. So I'm looking at areas that we can, and then finally, Fred, this government is very extravagant. Spending money that we should not be spending at all. The other day we saw the type of vehicle the president had acquired using taxpayers' money. I mean, are those the type of things? Are those...
Did the president have a nice vehicle with
my friend, you drive a car. Do you buy a car every 3 years? My sister drives a car. Does she buy a car every 2 years?
There could be security concerns for the president, probably.
Listen, the question is, can we do with what we had 2 years ago? Without compromising security? Yes. Because the man has, the office of the president has a number of vehicles at their disposal that they can use. Yeah? They don't have to buy motor vehicles every year. I think this budget was a budget full of corruption.
Okay.
They raised it to 4.3 so that they have a leeway of eating. They need to review, and particularly the OPEX account, operational account. And these unnecessary things that they're spending money on need to be reviewed.
Okay.
Okay? And even on CAPEX, capital projects, where we can defer, let us defer. Okay. So that we have better, we have more time to think through some of these things that we want to do and to find better ways of doing them.
Okay. But when you revise budget by anything between 8 to 10% of a budget, there must be consequences, especially on the development expenditure of a country.
No, but...
because we were expecting at least, and the president himself would be keen to do something within his first term.
Fred.
350 billion shillings less?
Fred, I've told you areas that they can raid without compromising development.
We know that those ones will most likely stay as they were.
They are not likely to be raidable. But Fred, let me just weigh in on that. The fact is that there is as I keep saying, a trust deficit in the government and government spending and government collections. People cannot trust. So that even if you brought that argument that we are going to reduce the budget, it is to whose or in whose interest and to whose benefit. You see, it's a selfish thing. It's a thing that you talk about yourselves. Say, oh, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation in our hands. Can we reduce our budget? Budget is something that you're still preparing to spend. It's not like you're actually helping anybody with it. It is your preparation for how you're going to collect funds and so on. So I hope and I wish the government the best. I wish the Commissioner General of KRA the best, because the situation is such that they cannot achieve now what they intended to do. And why? Because you flogged the donkey or the horse almost to death. You can't find, you can't squeeze anymore. You reach a point where they're trying everything new, but there is nowhere to find that money. These are ailing people. These are people who are dying. These are people who are flooded in. These are people whose businesses are closing. These are, and you're still trying to squeeze. So reality check, in my view, reality check. Budgets must be realistic. Number one. Even if we have
trillion was not realistic.
That was too ambitious. Are you trying to tell us that the last government did not think about how to raise much more money, and the previous one? Everybody has thought about it. And the people who are in the treasury, the people who are in KRA, the people who are in the Ministry of Finance, what we used to call Ministry of Finance, we have enough officers in those ministries who actually, I'm sure, are not being used or utilized to create the necessary steps. What we do is we introduce new people who are brand new to everything, who think they can do it because they're theorists, and they ignore the practical guys who know what to do. Okay. And the trust is lost. And when you want to do you want to see how government has lost trust, is that the people who are working for you can see things go wrong, and they have no courage to tell you they're going wrong.
Wow.
That's when you know there's a trust deficit. It is a situation where, as they say, the king is naked, but nobody can tell the king. It's a situation where you can say that the minister is afraid to come out and say to the president, hey, by the way, this is where we are going, my friend. This we can't achieve. Why is there fear? why should people fear to tell the truth about what's happening in the situation? That's how you lose trust. And the other way that you gain trust, we must gain trust in this country, is for the president to change the way they are doing things, they communicate to the people. Doublespeak should not be there anymore. Empathy should replace all that arrogance, whatever they do. And let there be more empathy with the people as you communicate what you're trying to do. Okay. And I do believe that Kenyans now actually deserve empathy.
Okay. And we'll be looking at that bit of empathy when it comes especially to the plans the government has in reducing the public sector wage bill, including proposals to end all the permanent and pensionable employment terms, and move to short-term contracts for all public servants, and whether or not that could present other problems. Time now for a break. When we come back, we'll be getting an update from my colleague Willie Dennis Giro on what exactly is happening in Mai Mahiu. By now, at least I think the issue is a bit clearer. He'll be informing us about what's happening. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Here on Dr. Ofweneke tonight.
Lakini director wako ananiambia hizi sasa nini? Sasa mimi
na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus niko niwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
we're getting from Mai Mahiu area, where we do understand a situation that could possibly be a flash flood situation happened early this morning at around 2 a.m. and causing quite some damage there. Our reporter, Willie Dennis Njiru, is there, has been there since 5 a.m. this morning. Willie Dennis, I don't know if you're in a position now to give us a better update on what's happening in Mai Mahiu.
Thank you very much, Indimuli, once again coming to you live from Mai Mahiu here. As you can see behind me, there is a myriad of activities taking place right now. It is a concerted effort by the administration and the disaster management of Nakuru County and Red Cross here and the initiative. And this section of the road that was actually destroyed, and it was boulders that are on the road. If my camera person could just turn right behind her, there is a very big boulder of trees there you can see, and it has actually covered a part of the road. And as you can see there, that is the situation, and not even a single small vehicle that can be able to pass here. And on the other side, across there, that far on the horizon, you can see the small river flowing there, and that is what was a tributary to what was the situation initially here. And as we had mentioned, had percolated to a section where the rail line crosses, which is already disconnected.
We do apologize for that poor signal from Mai Mahiu. Willie Dennis was just trying to bring us up to speed with what has happened. But yes, from the pictures we can actually tell that the situation in Mai Mahiu, currently the road is impassable. Coming from Naivasha or from Nakuru, you cannot proceed beyond Mai Mahiu. Boulders, big trees have been uprooted and they are blocking the road. Some vehicles have been swept away by flood water, and I do understand we have Willie Dennis. Let's continue listening to him.
I think
especially this place. We are just waiting for operations to go on. So far, there have been bodies that have been retrieved. We don't know how many. We don't know how many are buried because trees, everything is a disaster. It's terrible. It's terrible. I have no words to explain this. I've never seen anything like this.
Yes, and my colleague Willie Dennis Njiru talking to MP there, Jane Kihara, on the situation in Mai Mahiu. We do understand that that road is currently, and that's the old Naivasha road, is currently impassable. Traffic on both sides towards Mai Mahiu from Nairobi and from Naivasha stretching for kilometers, and also traffic from Narok, the same problem. That's just what's happening in Mai Mahiu, and we'll continue updating you that. We also have some piece of news from Murang'a, at a place called Kiganjo Village in Mathioa Sub-County, and a landslide has happened there as well. Let's go back to Mai Mahiu for more updates.
But then sometimes you don't even know where to move, even to think. It's an accident. It's something that just comes unawares. A lot of water still flowing, so we don't know who and who it's carrying. I hear there is a lady who was trapped somewhere. So I have nothing to say for now. I think we have to wait for the operations to end. But it's a damage irreparable.
Mai Mahiu is a water short-stricken area, and when it floods, Narok Mai Mahiu Road initially, and you have been the longest serving member of parliament around here. Have you taken any initiatives to ensure that maybe on disaster preparedness is well taken care of?
We have always talked about this road. You know, here even the soil is soft, so it creates water river where there has been none. If you go the gullies down here, so it's a nature. This is Mother Nature, which there's nothing anybody can do about.
So anything that we expect from maybe your office or the Nakuru County government in regard to salvaging the situation as it is right now?
But we have alerted them. I've posted in the group of MPs and posted to the governor so that she sends her management. But this is beyond them, I can assure you. This is beyond them. This one we need the military government. I know they can do a bit, but they maybe it's just so little. Three.
Yes, I'll be getting more updates from that direction, probably through a phone call, which signal could be a bit stable. And just listening to the MP Jane Kihara, you can tell the devastation in Mai Mahiu, and even her calling on the military, saying that right now it's only the military that could assist. So yes, we'll be continuing experiencing some of these situations and reporting on them. We'll be getting a better update from there. As I had mentioned earlier, something else is happening in Murang'a, Mathioya, Kiganjo village. A huge landslide has swept some houses, and a number of people are feared trapped under the debris. And we'll be getting a disaster response team has been dispatched to that area. We'll be getting details from there as well. I'm still in studio with the Memande panel, Dr. Mumbingaru, Philip Kisia, and Samuel Pogisio. As we come to the end of our conversation this morning, yes, I know we can continue talking about the flood situation, but this week, matters workers' rights and workers' unions come into play. Labor Day is in a day's time. The debate about managing the public sector wage bill is still rife. One of those proposals that has elicited quite some debate was a proposal to actually change all the employment terms for public sector workers from permanent and pensionable to short-term contracts. And I don't know if it's also a bit ambitious, or could it work, Dr. Ngaru?
Before I comment on that, let me comment about government coordination. Government is like an octopus. It's got very many arms. You don't know. One arm is pulling Philip Kisia, the other one is doing many things. But there is government coordination. And when that coordination is disjointed, we end up in situations like we are seeing all over. I strongly believe, because it's been done in other parts of the world, it's time that even the military comes out with their equipment to help out in situations like this one. It's time for the National Youth Service, the many of them that are in their barracks, to come out and be of good service to the suffering Kenyans. And I want to comment on the short-term contracts. I will try to be very respectful to that suggestion. But I think there is lack of knowledge in how government works. And that lack of knowledge is being aired to the public through such statements. And when you make Kenya a laboratory where you experiment on policy issues to the detriment of how things are done, it becomes very difficult. For those of us who have had an opportunity to work in the civil service and left at our own pressure, is that government is the best training ground in every field. Our problem is that we have politicized our civil service, and we have brought in people who probably do not qualify to run the various sectors of the civil service. My question is, okay, every government comes in, and we have seen it with this Kenya Kwanza government, where they don't respect the experience, the skills, everything that has gone on with past civil servants. And then, because you have come in and you have a different agenda and you've got your friends there, you parachute them to land in positions of government departments that you have no idea about. And I think, and I can justify it, this is why we are finding that they are lost.
Okay.
With a lot of respect, we cannot dare to do that kind of a thing to the civil service. Examples are there all over the world that once you have a professional civil service, anybody can come in, any party can come into power, but the civil service becomes the pillar that holds the country together. It is very important to think about that and respect professionalism.
Okay.
We are short of maybe just thinking that is a contract. You come in, make what you want to make, and leave.
Okay.
And it's a sad affair.
Bwana Kisia, do you get the feeling that this administration could be groping in the dark? Are they lost, as Dr. Mombingaru says, that some of these proposals could be a bit drastic or extreme?
They're not only extreme, but this is a government full of daydreamers. Okay? Because, this country's success can actually be underpinned under having a very sound public service. It is what is holding us. It is what has held successive governments. Governments have come and gone, but civil service has remained. And as Mumbia said, we spend a lot of money to train civil servants to get to the levels where they are today. Okay? So you can't afford to mess around without bank of experience. I think the philosophy behind contract management started in private sector, where I worked for many decades. Okay? It is not a very easy one to implement because the short-term contract is also fairly expensive because the risk is very high. You come in, you're expected to do what you've been contracted to do within the contract period. And there are rewards and sanctions. Okay? The cost of even engaging somebody on contract is very high. The cost of disengaging that person is equally high. Can government afford to engage and disengage about 1 million people every 3, 4, 5 years? what would be the cost? What would be the benefit? What would be the merit of even contracting people who at a very a lower cadre, drivers, messengers, and what have you? What they need to look at is production. And I think that's what President Kibaki did. He came in and he was not just talk about performance management as a lip service. He made it real. He made it happen. He supported. He put all his energies in it. We even had a fully fledged department just dealing with performance management and contracting. Okay? This one, we hear there's one, but it's just by name. And if and even the person heading it has no clue about performance management and contracting. So I think it would be a very dangerous thing to try and shift people who are already on permanent and pensionable. In fact, how do you do it? Because the law does not work what? Retrospectively. Okay? How do you just wake up? I don't know whether these fellows wake up from somewhere and they issue very, very heavy-weighted policy statements without thinking through.
Yet we've already accepted that the current wage bill is untenable, Bonapogisio. We need drastic, some argue we need drastic measures such as this.
Well, yeah, drastic within a context is much better. Again, the timing and the processing of it, it is a certain level of people where you can contract, by the way, but you can't do all civil servants, all the public service. I mean, you can't. Giving a contract creates more corruption. It's another way of actually creating positions for other people, because now you have a legitimacy in saying, I don't like Philip very much, so his contract comes to an end in 3 years. Now, it's not guaranteed a renewal, okay? In fact, the renewal, the second term is not guaranteed. You're only guaranteed where you are now. Then after that, people can begin to be replaced. And I think it can also create disaster. It can also create tension within our workforce and then yield no labor. I mean, completely.
More concerned about securing and
you'll be either you're going to create people who are just sycophants, the yes people, who are just going to have to survive. But then productivity will now be very low. And you may not get anything out of your public service. But as has been said, let us stabilize this public service. It is a thing that holds this country together. It is a thing that is supposed to be uniting the country. It is a thing that gives you an opportunity to say, today I'm at this level, I am a junior clerk, but if I work very hard, in the next 3 years, I'll become a full clerk. I'll become one day I'll become a permanent secretary. That growth within yourself and the targets and goals is what helps you going, what makes you work for your country. That creates patriotism. But if you start saying, now we're going to subject you to a contract, even the boss who is not sure about being the next thing will not work, and everybody will have to be struggling. Okay. So we would like to grow a civil service that Kenya is known for, that has sustained this country from the days before independence all the way to today. If you fragment that, if you come and change that without due care, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I realize we only have about 3 minutes to the end of this show, so I'll give each one of you 60 seconds only. So there's so many things we've talked about, and the pressure has always been how to provide some solutions. So if you were to give a solution in 60 seconds, Dr. Ngaru, as your final comments. To any of the challenges.
I will not give them a solution, but I want to alert them that if they move to contract the civil service servants that are already there, they're about 770, close to 1 million.
Yeah, close to 1 million, yes.
In last year's election, the votes between the president and the former prime minister was just 200,000 votes. They have pushed 700,000 votes to our side, and they are welcome. Let them implement it. This is a political statement. We are going to take advantage of it.
Okay. Thank you. Rakisia.
Fred, I mean, I don't know that these people are advisable anyway, but I would advise them to seek for help. Let them not be shy of saying that we have failed you as Kenyans, and we want help. We are Kenyans, we are ready to help where we can.
Finally,
well, let's put the country into prayer. Basically, we are in a situation where government policy is going on, these changes, and Labor Day is coming, but even the workers, everybody is threatened by this flooding situation. Our minds are not even now at peace. So I'd like to see the government begin to focus on the software of their people. The heart, what really makes this country tick is its people. Let's focus on the people. Let's try and create a country of peace. But let us save us from this flooding situation. Let's focus there now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Samuel Pogisio, former ICT Minister, Dr. Mumbingaru, former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, and Philip Kisia, former Town Clerk, Nairobi City, our panelists this Monday. Thank you so much for your very well-considered opinions on the issues we've discussed, top of which was the flooding situation and the politics of it as well. Interestingly, and when the floods present us with opportunities for a very interesting politics. Now, straight to our editorial comment now. The proposed shift from permanent and pensionable employment terms to contracts for civil servants has definitely sparked significant debate and concern, and rightly so. While the need to address the ballooning public sector wage bill is evident, the proposed solution warrants careful scrutiny. Firstly, the implications of such a move must be thoroughly examined. Transitioning the entire civil service workforce to contract-based employment raises several critical questions. Will the government, for example, be financially equipped to offset the accumulated pension obligations of public sector workers? Can such a drastic change be implemented smoothly without disruptions to essential services? Now, these are just some pressing concerns that cannot be overlooked. The legality and feasibility of the proposal must also be assessed. Would this shift require amendments to existing laws? Could it potentially subject the government to prolonged legal battles with disgruntled employees? It is crucial that we caution against the pursuit of overly zealous measures by some government officials. Rushing into drastic changes without thorough analysis and consideration can have far-reaching consequences. Such actions risk worsening existing challenges and may lead to unintended negative outcomes. It is crucial for decision makers to exercise prudence and foresight, recognizing that hasty decisions could ultimately harm both the public sector workforce and the broader economy. Instead of quick fixes, we call for a measured approach that prioritizes thoughtful planning and consultation. Ultimately, the welfare of countless individuals hangs in the balance. Now, those in authority currently must realize that they promised to make life better for Kenyans when they offered themselves for election, and any decision that has a potential to cause unnecessary pain to any section of the population, including for those who work in the civil service, must not be rushed or taken lightly. That is our editorial comment this morning.
Promoting insurance awareness with Insurance Regulatory Authority. Your house is one of your greatest investments. Have you bought a domestic package insurance cover? The policy covers residential building against damage by floods, fire and lightning and other causes. House contents like furniture and household goods against theft or damage. Death or injury to domestic servants in the course of employment. Death or injury to visitors within the residential premises. Personal belongings like laptops, iPads and phones within and outside the home. Read and understand the terms and conditions of your policy. This message is brought to you by IRA. It's the Premier League, all on DStv. All the goals, clashes, and
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hii.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. We now want to switch gears and get into a different conversation. And this is on 20 years of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, the NG-CDF. We're very privileged to have in studio this morning the Honorable John Olago Alwoch, who's the board chairperson of the NG-CDF. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
A pleasure, Ndimuli. It's good to be here.
20 years, and the years must have passed so quickly because this fund was started around 2005, 2003 to 2005.
2003.
Yes.
2003. That's when the law was enacted, but it came into effect on 15th of April 2004. So we are celebrating 20 years from 15th of April 2004.
Yes.
But we pushed this a little further today, up to this weekend on Friday, due to the diary of His Excellency the President. He was not able to get time on the 15th of April.
Okay.
So the earliest he could give the board was 3rd of May.
So we do expect there will be an elaborate event to mark the 20 years.
Elaborate national event on the 3rd of May.
Okay.
Graced by His Excellency the President. He has agreed to be our guest of honor. Yes.
And now it is 20 years later, it is unimaginable that any Kenyan or any constituency in Kenya would exist without NG-CDF. It has become a very integral part of our society. What are some of the key things you feel NG-CDF has become part of the Kenyan population?
I think the CDF was a fairly new phenomenon in 2004 when it started. But looking back over 20 years, we have come up with a model that is administratively cost-effective, rid of bureaucracy, and administrative is very cheap now. You know, like the president said once, it is one of the funds in the country that is managed at a very low cost, lowest cost. Yes.
Okay.
And I think this is because of the model that we are using in the CDF, where we have got constituency committees. In every constituency, there's a constituency CDF committee who then identify the projects of priority in that particular constituency, is costed and then forwarded to the board as a proposal. The board goes through the technical issues, costing, viability, and everything else, and then I decide to send down the funds to the constituencies.
Okay.
I think that's why the model that we're using has become effective and cheap.
Yet, when most Kenyans hear about the CDF, the first thing that comes to mind is bursaries. And is it probably the flagship deal that the CDF really targeted, that probably there were more on bursaries and some other things just came about much later?
No, originally, at inception, the idea was infrastructure development for education, security, and others. But as CDF evolved, it became apparent that there's a need for bursary. I think the poverty level of our people is very low. And to encourage the government policy of 100% transition, CDF came in very handy in paying fees for a lot of students who would otherwise not find their way to secondary schools or to tertiary colleges or universities. So I think CDF has been known for bursaries. And that's why in the last amendments to the law, which His Excellency signed in December last year, bursary was enhanced to 40% of the fund. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the other major projects? You talked about infrastructure, especially for schools. What are the other projects that CDF is really intended for?
You see, by law, CDF can only apply its funds to functions which are purely based on national government, not county. And what we partner with a lot with the Ministry of Education for provision of infrastructure for schools and colleges, Ministry of Health in the provision of construction of medical training colleges all around the country. And we also partner with the Interior Ministry and the Police Department, National Police Service in construction of offices for administrators, sub-county administrators, assistant county, formerly DOs, chiefs, assistant chiefs, police stations, police patrol bases, and the sub-county police headquarters. So these have also enhanced security in all areas in the Republic where otherwise citizens would not have easy access to services. Okay. It has also enhanced security because now people can move freely, they can do business longer hours, and that has helped in a lot of places.
And you are among the first members of parliament, because I know you've served as a member of parliament in Kisumu,
yes,
to have actually overseen these funds in your constituency. And kindly paint a picture for us from back then in 2007 when you were MP Kisumu
West.
Kisumu West.
Yes.
And now, and the kind of changes that this fund has gone through.
You know, in the Muli, I do not know whether it is because of the way CDF performed in Kisumu West when I was MP, that made the authorities decide that you had the CDF board. Maybe.
Probably.
Probably.
What is it that you did that was memorable in Kisumu West to the CDF?
You see, in Kisumu West is partially urban and partially rural. Yes. The urban part of the constituency was fairly well developed. Infrastructure was quite high. But in the rural part of the constituency, a lot had to be done. We didn't have, the schools were still mud-walled. mud walled schools, no access to electricity, no access to roads. But I look back over the last 10 years, the improvement in that particular constituency. All the classrooms that were mud walled are now cemented. They are all permanent, terrazzo floors, tiled floors. And you can see the pleasure in the faces of the children, the students and pupils. So it's something that makes me feel a lot of pleasure when I see this happiness in the children. Yeah.
And now, because of that, CDF is really associated with members of parliament. But you've talked about the constituency CDF boards on committees.
Committees, yeah.
Kindly paint for us a picture of what exactly the role of the CDF committees at the constituency level is, and how much they determine in as far as what projects to undertake.
Let me tell you something, Mbuli. The CDF has evolved from 2004 up to now, and I'm lucky that I've been part of that evolution in terms of amendments in Parliament. Some of the amendments to bring to CDF Act what it is now, some were initiatives from Parliament itself to make it more efficient. Some were also initiated because of the numerous litigation cases we have had in court challenging the legality of CDF. So amendments had to be made to the law to align the CDF to the constitution and the law. But I look back and the model that we have, whereby the constituency development committees that we are talking about are the integral part of our development. Projects that come to the board to be funded must be projects that have gone through public participation, thorough public participation in every ward, in every constituency. The law says that the chairman of the committee at the constituency level, within the first year of his appointment, must hold public participation in all the wards in that constituency. At every ward, the residents identify their priorities. All these priorities from the wards are then accumulated and brought to the constituency committee, where they now look at the ones we prioritized, they forward to the board. So within that model, then, there's no way that we can fund a project that is not a priority to the people in the constituencies. And the role of members of parliament have slowly been removed from the day-to-day running of the fund. Originally, 2004, members of parliament used to be referred to as the patrons.
Yes.
Not anymore.
What is their role now?
Their role is to oversight through parliamentary committees. Nothing more. If you look at the law the way it is now, and I think this now aligns it with the constitution and separation of powers.
Yes.
Members of parliament now are not involved in the day-to-day running at all.
Yet they take a lot of credit for the success of NG-CDF.
I think it's because of our mindset, the Kenyan mindset. From the time when members of parliament used to be referred to as patrons, that mindset has stuck in us. We still look at MPs as patrons. In fact, as early as even this month, I've been to constituencies where projects funded by the board have written in bold, Patron Honorable so-and-so, MP. That's not the law.
Do you feel like we'll ever get to a point where we could totally disengage members of the National Assembly from the CDF?
Yes. Yes, I see a time very soon where the role of members of parliament will be understandable to them even, because as we speak now, the members of parliament still feel that they are the ones who can direct what needs to be done in the constituency.
Yes.
Their role is to oversight through parliamentary committees. In fact, our first committee, the one that we are directly answerable to, is the National Assembly Select Committee on NG-CDF. That is chaired by Honorable Sirma of Eldama Ravine. That's the committee that we fall directly under. But in addition to that committee, we also are oversighted by the Devolved Funds Committee. Okay. We are also oversighted by 2 other committees. In fact, I think of all the other state corporations in our republic, the one that is oversighted most is NG-CDF.
Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned in passing about some of the legal challenges that the fund has faced, especially litigation on its legality. I remember the Supreme Court made a pronouncement on the legality of CDF, And after that, there have been attempts to try and entrench the same into the Constitution, the latest being through the NADCO process as well. And one wonders, where does NG-CDF stand with all those legal challenges? If at all you can just provide clarity on the legality of this fund.
I think the fundamental issues that have arisen over all those litigations in court have been the involvement of members of parliament, separation of powers, because members of parliament cannot on one side legislate and then on the other side sit to look at how the funds are being implemented on the ground. This has been the fundamental fact about all those cases. But because of that, slowly parliament has been able to legislate to align the CDF with the Constitution. As we speak now, the last role that MPs had in the management of this fund was a clause in the Act that used to be called oversight committees at the constituency, where members of parliament were integral. They sat on that committee. In the latest amendments of December last year, that clause was repealed. It was removed. So that was the last contact members of parliament had with the management of the fund, oversight committees. It's no longer there.
Okay.
So I see a bright future, with little litigation against CDF as we move forward.
But if at all it's part of what the NADCO process
I was going to talk about that in just a moment, because apart from that, clause that was removed, the NADCO report, the two sides may have disagreed on several issues, but one issue that both sides agreed on was that NG-CDF must be put in the Constitution. That is agreed by both sides.
So it is still not yet...
not yet,
yes.
Not yet. It's work in progress. But I think now Parliament is moving towards implementing the NADCO report. And I believe they're going to look at the amendments, whether we can have NG-CDF in the Constitution without a referendum or by a referendum.
Okay.
So I think that's what Parliament is going to deal with.
Okay. But on this issue of disengaging members of the National Assembly from the running of the NG-CDF, we've seen accolades being given to certain members on the best use of CDF, and probably some getting applause on how CDF has been properly run in their respective constituencies in comparison to others. And one the questions that arise there is one of standardization, and secondly, are we still sure that the MP has nothing to do with the running of the CDF at the ground level?
You see, at the CDF, at the constituency level, members of parliament can provide policy direction only, and then the committee under the chairmanship, the chair of the committee, secretary of the committee, and the members of that committee are the ones to identify the projects. But when these committees do excellent jobs and the constituency is rated, normally the board will rate the top 10. For obvious reasons, you don't say who are the top, the lower 10. The top 10, then the media will then pick who is the MP in that constituency. So it's not really the board, it's the media that picks on the MP and say, constituency X, MP so-and-so is number one in performance. Yes. Okay. But there are a lot of things, by the way, if you talk about standardization, there are a lot of issues that we need to look at, because Kenya is diverse, and no one constituency is the same as the other. So when we are going to look at standardization and look at issues that cut across all constituencies, that can become measurable. Now, CRIs is not very easy, but we are working towards that.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the issue that occurs is, does it mean that my MP, because probably the amount I get from our constituency, for our constituency, is lesser than the other constituency? And that's the issue. That's the kind of question Kenya's asking. Are some constituencies treated unfairly when it comes to the disbursement of the CDF kitty?
No. The law requires that the funds which we receive, which are to be disbursed to the constituencies, 75% is disbursed equally to all constituencies. 25% of the funds is disbursed according to the number of wards. The fewer the wards, the less the money. The more the wards, the more the money. So the disparity between the disbursements to constituencies differ, but slightly. Not in a way that would affect development, only slightly. But, okay, there are people who say that that is not the best way of dividing the funds. We'll have constituencies that have, say, about 20 secondary schools, about 30 primary schools. Then there are others which have about 100 primary schools, 80 secondary schools. Now look at that situation. The amount of money is the same. The schools and the number of students and pupils are different. So clearly, some constituencies are more constrained than others. And is that something that we have, the board and the parliament has to look at? How do we make disbursements to constituencies as equitable as possible?
Okay.
Yeah.
One way would be looking at the population growth of different areas. And we come at a time that there was to be an anticipated review of boundaries and delimitation of boundaries and review of constituencies and the number of wards.
Yes.
That did not happen. We are in defiance of the Constitution as at the end of last month. It did not happen. How does that affect CDF going forward?
You see, population statistics have changed clearly in the last 10 years or so. And indeed, it's true that IBC should have been in place to look at delimitation of new boundaries for constituencies and wards. But now with IBC not in place for the last 2 years, and the end of this parliament also approaching, there won't be any time to do this delimitation properly, because it's a very motive exercise where you are going to either make some constituencies smaller or bigger. It's very emotive. I don't see it happening. But that simply means for us at the board, we have got to continue with the law as it is.
Using previous data from before the last census?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Wouldn't that disenfranchise some constituencies where population has really grown in comparison to others?
Certainly, certainly. And that I'm throwing the gauntlet to the parliamentarians. You see, as a board, we implement the law that the parliament makes.
Yes.
Until parliament and the IBC makes new laws, we have to go by the law that are in place as it is now.
Okay.
We can't make laws on our own.
Now, the issue with that is that many of these parliamentarians, because they continue receiving accolades and applause, depending on the performance of CDF, whether or not they're delinked, that they may be very emotional or emotionally attached to the fund, even when making legislation regarding to, with regard to how the funds should be run. Are you safe? Are you saying the CDF is safe from this kind of manipulation or influence from the National Assembly?
It's not really, in the Mule, it's not really manipulation or influence, but I think it's interest. The way the CDF has impacted on the lives of Kenyans is such that everybody appreciates it. I've been to constituencies where residents tell me, Chairman, here, if it was not for CDF, we don't know where we would have been. Close your eyes, Chair, for a moment, and imagine where we are. Where would we be without bursaries, without police stations, without chief's offices? I close my eyes, I open and say, indeed, CDF has impacted lives positively. But I don't want to say that members of parliament have no role to play. All I want to say is that the members of parliament must appreciate their role, because if they don't appreciate their role, then we are going to end up in court once more.
Okay.
And their role must be to oversight the board and the constituencies in parliament, not on the ground. Now, when members of parliament receive accolades, as you say, when their committees do well and they receive accolades, I think the media also need to understand that the accolade should be to the constituency committees. You can then say the member of parliament is so and so, but not that the member of parliament has performed so well, no.
Okay, and now in the 20 years that the CDF, initially CDF, eventually NG-CDF has been in existence, what can you say has really changed in terms of if it was to be run as an organization, NG-CDF, the one that you chair, what has really changed in terms of the practices, the standards that you've employed in running that institution?
I think for once, the relationship between the board and parliament has has become much better, so that the board and the Committee on Parliament can sit down and look at what amendments do we need and why. Do we need to change the amount of money that we put towards bursaries? Now with the climate change and the effort of the government on climate change mitigation, what do we need to do? And in the last amendments that the President signed, Parliament introduced 5% of the funds for the constituencies to be put towards climate change mitigation. That was not there before.
Okay.
Yes.
Won't that present a problem now that environment, especially the environmental matters close to that, is a devolved function? If at all now CDF wants to do something similar that the county governments seek to do as well?
We are working very closely with the Council of Governors so that we don't have duplicity of efforts. The board does not involve itself in issues that the Council of Governors also get involved in. And so far, we have not had a serious conflict yet. But in terms of climate change, we know what the role of national government should be, the role of the county government. But it's a whole government approach. It's not something that you can say is for national government, county governments only. Both levels of government must be involved. But for us, it's national government. We also introduced ICT hubs. You know that the government's policy on ICT. We are introducing ICT hubs in every constituency, funded by the board. And of course, we are waiting for guidelines from the Minister of ICT. All this is meant to put Kenya where we want it. And CDF really, as a plan that we have, impacts to the ground, because when you are implementing projects, you have a local contractor who engages local labor, who purchases local materials from local shops. At the end of the day, this trickles down to the common man on the ground in that constituency. So again, that helps in bottom-up economic transformation agenda. It's a real, live model of better.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that you've seen the success of the NG-CDF in constituencies, now we've seen the push by other elected leaders to have their own funds. The NGAF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. We've seen even senators asking for the oversight fund, and even MCAs asking for word development fund.
Yeah.
And are we being honest in saying that members of the National Assembly are totally delinked from this fund when everyone else now wants to ape what the member of the National Assembly is doing?
I see in your words in the Muli, I see in your words what goes on in the minds of the people, that there's no way you can take away CDF from members of parliament. It is the history that we have had from CDF, basically from its start 2004 up to now. But I think there's a need now for us to have a whole government approach, both at MCAs, women reps, and all the others who want funds for development, senators, so that we don't have these different, buckets, small buckets, big buckets, all for development. It's going to be difficult to manage. But what I know, the infrastructure for management of the fund that we have at the board is the best in this country. I'm being very impartial, but I think it's the best. We don't have similar systems for any of the other funds. Even GAF, as a board, they don't have systems on the ground. There's no way you can identify from the grassroots what needs to be done. But I think ultimately we need to look at how all these development funds can be put together so that we don't have duplicity.
Because there's been an issue of duplication of even some bursary benefits. Someone comes and gets bursary from the NG-CDF and goes to NGAF, gets bursary. The government has, the governor has his own bursary kitty. The same person benefits, and without proper data, it would mean that all these initiatives, however well-meaning, may not really cater adequately to the population. Some people may end up benefiting more than others.
I agree with you totally. The system that we have in place now.
Do you have any mechanism to actually remedy that situation?
For us in CDF, we are in the process. We are in the process of digitalizing our operations throughout the country, so that at the click of a button, we'll be able to know if applicant A has made a request for bursary from constituency A, at the same time constituency B, or any others. So within our system, we are going to get to know that. But I think we want to have a system when we digitalize, a system that can then integrate with the others in government, so that this issue that somebody gets bursary from all the others, including CDF, can be eliminated.
Okay.
Digitalization is the only way out. Yes.
And because we've dealt with politicians, and yes, we may try and say MPs are not really running CDF, but some MPs, some members of the National Assembly could be a bit cheeky and try and influence how this money is spent, who gets benefit, who gets bursary here and there, because they're also influential even over the committees. Do we have mechanism to deal with that?
The process, if I confine myself for now to bursary applications, the process is meant to be foolproof, so that only the needy get assistance. But the influence of members of parliament in their constituencies cannot be underestimated. And indeed, it's only in a few constituencies where you find there's conflict between the committee and the member of parliament. In most constituencies, they work very closely, and they look at member of parliament as there's a word they use, stakeholder number one.
Okay, stakeholder number one.
Stakeholder number one. So they say stakeholder number one wants us to do this. My advice to my CDF committees has always been, as a representative of the people, you can communicate the wishes to you as the committee. But you, the chairperson of the committee, the secretary of the committee, and the fund manager, our fund manager, you have a duty to ensure that whatever stakeholder number one wants to be done is done according to law, so that issues don't arise. And I think in most constituencies have been doing that. And the way they spend money is accountable, is transparent. And when the Auditor General looks at our books, they give us clean bill of health. But I think we have got about 3 constituencies. You have heard about the Fiery Awards, where institutions that do very well in terms of accountability, transparency in public funds, where they are awarded. We have had about 5 constituencies being awarded.
After based on audited accounts? Or?
Audited accounts. Based on audited accounts. There are constituencies that have done very well. Some of them have got 3 awards annually, 3 consecutive years. So it's now a question of how the board audits the committees. Under the law, as a board, we are required to produce 292 audit reports.
For each constituency?
For each constituency, we must have 1 audit report for each constituency. Then we have 1 for the board.
Okay.
Yes. So I think the law, in terms of audit, gives us very little room to maneuver, and we comply. And we'll be doing very well.
Okay.
Yes.
But what about those poor performers? What happens to them when you realize that a particular constituency has not been managing its CDF kitty properly? Is there room for the board, the one you chair, to actually rein in?
There are a few cases where indeed some constituencies have done very badly. Where we have been able to identify, we send our own auditors to check on how they have been performing, what has gone wrong. In some cases, where the extreme is detected, we refer the chairperson and the fund manager for further investigations by either DCI or EACC, where we see evidence of criminal conduct. Where there is no evidence of criminal conduct, then the board engages administratively with the fund manager who is in charge.
By administratively, what do you mean?
Administratively, I mean either dismissal or
do we have any active cases in court emanating from audits of different constituency committees that have mismanaged?
Yes, there are cases. We have some civil cases, some criminal cases, but there are not many. What as a board, what we try to do is not let constituencies get to that level. We try to monitor them from time to time. And our people, our management team, both at the headquarters and also at the regions, monitor how they perform. That way we reduce cases, extreme cases. We are able to detect wrongdoings before they get out of hand.
Okay.
Yes.
And one would imagine if, because now this is a national government CDF kitty, the government already has administration officers across the country. And most of these constituencies could more or less be referred as sub-counties. And each sub-county has a deputy commissioner?
Deputy county commissioner.
A deputy county commissioner.
Yeah.
Why is that line of government administration not involved in the management of NG-CDF? So that probably would link the politicians from this, probably.
The law requires that in every constituency, the deputy county commissioner in that constituency is an automatic member of the Constitutional Development Committee. So there's coordination. That is by law. So, you know, again, the presence of the DCC in these committees also proves as a buffer between politicians and the other members of the committee. Yes. And so far, we have done very well by coordinating with them. And whether we are doing police stations, police headquarters, police posts, chief's officers, assistant chief's officers, DCC's officers, the DCC as the integral person that we deal with. In terms of, you know, when you're going to build a DCC's office or a police station, you don't just get an architect to draft, to draw. You know, you need specialized drawings. You know, like if it's a police station, you want where is the armory? Where is the gender desk? Where is OCS going to sit? Where are the male cells, female cells? So we coordinate very closely with the ministries when we do this, when we are doing this.
Yeah. And of course, marking 20 years of anything is a very momentous occasion. And I know you sit back and look back and say, fine, we've done some fine work in one area, probably some failures in others. In your own admission, where do you think there's room for growth for the NG-CDF and areas of improvement going forward?
Looking at our success in the past and looking at the future, I see CDF becoming even more integral in terms of development in the country. You may have noticed, if you follow CDF, you may have noticed that right now, there are ministries who are relying on CDF to implement their plans. Our biggest partner is Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education in provision of JSS classrooms, there's been a challenge. And now the understanding between Parliament and the ministry is what we call a shilling for a shilling, where they contribute is about 3 billion shillings to CDF, and CDF matches that with the equivalent amount for schools which have been identified by the Ministry of Education for construction of JSS classrooms. Ministry of Health is partnering with CDF in construction of MTCs. We have about 63 in the country, which have been constructed by CDF. Again, when you're putting up an MTC, it's not just a building like a classroom, no. There are specialized buildings which you need to have architects and technicians from the Ministry of Health and KMTC board. Now we ICT, ICT hubs. We can't build ICT hubs on our own. So we are collaborating very closely with the Ministry of ICT in identifying areas, constructing, designing the hubs, and now they are going to be maintained, sustained. So, you know, I see as we move forward, CDF being very integral with other ministries.
Okay.
You remember, before Professor Magoha died, Ministry of Education were building classrooms on their own. And Professor Magoha said this is cheaper. It turned out that construction was not up to standard. The ministry didn't have people on the ground to supervise the constructions. And then now, the ministry is now using CDF to do that.
Mechanism.
Yes. So I believe that the system that we have in place they are strong, and they're going to be strong as we move forward. And as chairman of the board, I'm happy about the goodwill that we have from our CS, the Treasury, and the President himself. That goodwill is something we want to build on to make CDF an example, a shining example in our country.
Of course, there have been complaints about late disbursement of the fund and how it affects a lot of things, especially schools. Right now we're in a situation where we have a flooding situation. Some of those classrooms have been destroyed. And I don't know how much they will rely on CDF for the reconstruction and going forward. How bad is the situation when it comes to government mechanism and the timely release of funds?
Timely release of funds by the Treasury is a challenge which, as a board chair, we understand at the board, because release of funds will depend on the performance of the economy. Our economy is not performing as well as they should. So there's been very slow release of funds from the exchequer. But you remember early this year, when the delay, last year, when schools were about to open, we had not received money from the Treasury, and MPs...
They almost went on strike.
They said no CDF, no parliament, no CDF, no parliament. But as a board, we understand that we are going through very constrained financial times. The Treasury has undertaken to Parliament to be releasing funds, about 10 billion per month, to the board. And I think MPs have understood that indeed we can't do better than that. And so far, the Treasury has been complying with that undertaking. As a board, as soon as we receive funds from the Treasury, my staff burn the midnight oil. Within 2 days, all those monies are disbursed to the constituencies. That's one aspect. The second aspect is how CDF is coming in terms of tragedy, like now flooding. In a lot of places in our republic now, classrooms have collapsed, toilets have collapsed. Indeed, as I speak with you now, up to Friday last week, I had about 8 MPs who had been to my office and the CEO's office with problems that we are going to open school next week. Classrooms have collapsed. There are no toilets. What do we do? So as I get back to the board from here, we have to sit down as a board and find out what are we going to do. Yes. Okay. And of course, you are aware, the Ministry of Education has now postponed school opening dates for another 1 week. So that 1 week now is going to give us time to think, how do we help constituencies? Yeah.
Something interesting in today's dailies is the fact that the government is looking to cut the budget possibly by about 350 billion shillings. That could affect a lot. Do you anticipate any budget cuts for the CDF kit?
Budget cuts, government budget cuts and measures to contain the expenditure by the government is something that we are very conscious about. We have had a meeting at State House twice on how we can cut down on expenditure. Then we had, the other week, we had a conference at BAMBA, the third National Bill Conference, Wage Bill Conference. All these were geared towards how do we reduce inefficiency and wastefulness, how do we reduce corruption, and how do we enhance efficiency. That was the subject. Now, all this boils down to what the position of CDF is on this. The act under which we operate says that 2.5% of the national government share of revenue will come to CDF. So by law, it is fixed.
Okay.
So the government cannot reduce it. There could be a delay in disbursing, but it can't be reduced as it is now.
Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, with serious responsibility like that, we have got to look forward to use the monies we receive well.
Okay.
Because the law says that our funds cannot be reduced, even however poorly the economy performs.
Okay. Yeah. So beyond the legal challenges that are so obvious and people have talked about for quite a while and probably the attempts to remedy, what is the other serious challenge that the CDF is facing?
One of the biggest challenges, of course, was litigation, which now for me, as a lawyer, can say is a thing of the past. I do not expect that going forward we are going to have as many court cases against CDF as we used to have. Those court cases stagnated growth. They also placed an element of uncertainty in the way you're operating. I think that's now clearer. The only challenge I see going forward is performance of our economy. Okay, the future looks bright, but as long as we are not performing very well, this is going to be a strain on the government, I understand. And how the cabinet is going to handle this together with the Treasury Ministry that we fall under is something I cannot tell. But that could be a challenge as we go forward.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting. And as we come to the end of this conversation, once more, looking back at the 20 years of the existence of the CDF, I'm sure there must be some very brilliant success stories that whenever you get an opportunity to tell, that is a go-to story, and you say CDF changed the life for such a population or an individual. Which is that story that...
I think some of these success stories will come up, at the 20th anniversary celebrations on Friday. But one of them that I think about is an MP, a member of parliament, who went through secondary school, paid for by CDF bursary, through university, paid for by CDF bursary. He trained, and now he's a member of parliament.
Oh. Are you in a position to reveal the name?
No, not today. Not today.
We'll find out.
We'll find out on Friday.
Okay.
But there are many other success stories, many, of people whose lives have been changed. Orphans who have become serious people, senior people in the country through CDF. So, bursary is one of the components of our functions that has uplifted a lot of people in a lot of places.
Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned that the media is always quick to applaud or even give credit to some members of parliament with regard to the performance of the CDF in particular constituencies. I don't know if you are in agreement with the kind of assessment the media has done, or do you think that the question is, if you are asked which constituency has performed the best in as far as the management and use of CDF, is it one that you can mention?
I can mention.
Or even the top 5, for example.
I could mention Mukurweni, I could mention Kasipul Kabondo. Those two come to my fingertips because they have performed very well, and they, even getting the awards, in terms of transparency and auditing and all that. But there are many others that may not find themselves in that category, but they have done equally well.
Because people have been talking about Kiharu constituency, especially in media, and I was wondering if at all you were in agreement with the same assessment, or sometimes probably the way we assess as a media is a bit different from
I don't want to get into a controversy about Kiharu and Nimuli, but because the assessment on Kiharu is not done by the board.
Okay.
It's not been done by the board, so I wouldn't be able to say anything about Kiharu. But the one that we assess, we try to be as objective as possible and fair as possible.
And Mukurweni and Kasipul Kabondo come out on top.
They come out on top.
Okay, right. Yes. Any more words to add, anything as you make your final comment?
I want to thank Kenyans for the support they have shown towards CDF for 20 years now, and urge that we continue to participate from wherever we are in the country. Please look at CDF as one of the components of the funds, of public funds that come to the ground. Don't sit and don't be aloof. Be involved in how the funds are managed in your constituency. Either be a whistleblower or be a participant, because I see CDF as the vehicle that's going to be used to develop our country.
Right. Thank you so much, Bwana John Olago Alwoch, Chairperson, Board, National Government Constituency Development Fund, giving us time to understand more about the NG-CDF as we mark 20 years of this special fund, which was started as far back at the year 2003, at least the idea in 2003. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best as you mark the 20th anniversary of this fund.
It's been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're still watching Morning Cafe. We have a lot more in store for you. Let's take a break now. We'll be back with more.
One of the most heinous crimes ever committed in Kenya that sent the country into shock.
In my forensic life, I've never come across such incidents around.
She told me that there was a friend who was leaving the country. They are going to have an early dinner.
I found texts indicating that time was running out. The intention was to ensure that there was no trace of this girl.
Watch how it all unfolds on Crimes Untold. Coming soon.
Make your spices pop. If you're making a dish that relies heavily on spices for seasoning, toast the spices on a pan for about 30 seconds until they are fragrant before adding them to your recipe. It vastly improves their taste and amplifies the flavor.
Bwana mchuzi, nadhani mwenyewe hali halisi umeiona. Tulivyotoka kwenye kikao, yule mwanamke ni mgumu, hataki kuelewa.
Ukija huku shamba unakujaga kulinda nini?
Kwa ajili ya nguruwe wanaokula miogo.
Nataka nikuoneshe nguruwe wanaokula miogo yako ni wa aina gani.
You must be out of that mind.
Nilikuwa nataka kusikia maneno haya kutoka kwako.
Watu ambao duniani wanasifika kwa kupiga na kuvunja mifupa.
You don't build a business, you build the people. Then the people build the business. Zig Ziglar.
Introducing the whole new TV47.digital, a brand new way to immersive experience to news and entertainment. Enjoy uninterrupted live streaming of your favorite programs on TV47 and Radio 47 on the go with our new mobile-friendly website. Experience the future of broadcasting. Visit www.tv47.digital or scan this QR code and stream your way to endless news and entertainment. Welcome to the home of untold stories.
Did you know that tilting the head back during a nosebleed is not recommended? It's more effective to lean slightly forward and pinch the nostrils together to help stop the bleeding.
Hi there, my name is Dr. George Washuri. I am here to present to you a wonderful place you can build a retirement home. Where else other than Ocean View Ridge, Vipingo by Optiven? This property is well manicured. We have a perimeter wall. We are doing a swimming pool. We just concluded a beautiful entry gate. Only 2 miles to the ocean. Do you want to retire in the coastal region? Call this number 0790 300 300. The best property ever.
In a world where barriers seem overwhelming, there are those who defy expectations and go beyond the limit. Join us for an inspiring journey as we shine a spotlight on the extraordinary stories of courage, resilience, and triumph. Prepare to be inspired, moved, and uplifted.
And you speak so well. What do you want to be when you grow up? Tell me, a journalist. No. What?
I want to be a musician and a teacher.
You have a neighbor, a friend, somebody who you know has a child with Down syndrome. Get to know that person, talk to them, get to know the child, because it's a way of you creating awareness for yourself and understanding these are children like your children.
Beyond the Limit, every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47, and we now want to get another update from Mai Mahiu, where a flood situation is currently unfolding. And I'm joined by Willie Dennis Njiru on phone. Willie Dennis, by now you have clarity on how much damage has occurred and probably the number of casualties. Kindly bring us up to speed with the situation on the ground.
Thank you very much, Indimoli, once again. As you have said, this morning it is catastrophic for the locals of Mai Mahiu, where apparently around 2 a.m., past 2 a.m., close to 3 a.m., there was a landslide, which actually they say it was a dam, but not as such. But just bringing our listeners and our viewers up to speed on what is happening is that unconfirmed reports, we have tens of bodies that have been retrieved so far, but we are waiting for formal communication from the authorities. That consists of the Red Cross and the administration. But so far, nothing concrete or substantive that can come from these officers, seemingly because the retrieving of bodies is still underway. And as we are talking right now, we are headed to the Mai Mahiu hospital, where we have also tens of casualties who are taken ill by ambulances and locals here at Mai Mahiu, who actually took time out of their busy schedule to ensure that they have their community taken care of at the hospital. And they have suffered injuries of various degrees, and apparently, as we are talking now, the lower side of Mai Mahiu, that is on the southern side, on Narok side, that is the section where we have retrieved, they have retrieved most of the bodies actually. And we have now 3 shovels on site that have been actually clearing the boulders that had covered a section of the road. And they are doing this with a lot of caution so that maybe not to bury other bodies of relatives who may have been captured by whatever happened. The soil of this area is volcanic soil and is very loose. So actually what might have happened is the loose soil that may have covered so many of these relatives. I spoke to one lady, a young lady, who told us that she had to cling on. The father had to cling on to a gate, and she had to be catapulted at close to almost 70 meters away. But luckily, she survived, and the brother is still missing. As such, very many families are still on this trend that very many people are missing relatives, and as such, the Red Cross is yet to set up a center where they can report missing relatives, and so that thorough search can be conducted from around this place. And actually, as it is, and nobody knows until when the snarl-up actually that has been here for close to 4 hours now, the road still standing still on both sides of Mai Mahiu town, on the Mai Mahiu Kamandora and Mai Mahiu Naivasha road is actually on a total standstill. But until when this opens, no one knows. But seemingly because the authorities are here and the traffic is here, we assume this is going to take ease anytime not so long from now, because a section of the road that had been actually covered by the soil, the loose soil and the boulders has been cleared. And when I left that scene, the lumberjack were there trying to cut down the trees that had actually gotten to the section of the road. And when I get to the hospital, perhaps we could be linking up in the Moli to just bring you up to speed on the situation as it is in the hospital. Yes, back to you in the Moli.
Well, Dennis, before I let you go, you've mentioned that there are attempts to reopen the road to traffic. Do you have any indication when this could happen? Is there hope, because even now as you offer advice to other motorists, is there hope that that section of the road could still be could be open for use later today?
Yes, I think from where the boulders had actually covered part of the road, and the mudslide has actually been cleared by the shovels that were deployed along that section of the road from the KENHA, that is Kenya National Highway Authority, a few moments back. And the road now is quite passable. There are no cracks on the road, but I think they are waiting for some engineers to actually ascertain that we do not have any other cracks beneath that could be catastrophic to motorists flying on that road. So when it happens, we'll be bringing our viewers up to speed and those who are flying on this road.
What about the situation? What about the situation with the railway? You had mentioned that part of the railway crossing had been damaged.
Yeah.
Is that still the case? Is there any attempt to repair that at this point?
Yes, still stands, still as it is. The rail has been totally disconnected. It has rendered it totally impassable, and that is not a rail that can actually be used anytime soon, perhaps I will say, because this is a scenario repeating itself. About 2014, a similar scenario on the very same. A few people lost life on the very same place when a similar incident happened, but it was not as of the magnitude that it is as at now. But everybody around here, even the old people, insist that this has not happened here in yesteryears, as long as this has been referred to as Mai Mahiu, and that area has been as it is. So it is going to maybe take a more technical approach from the railway engineers to ensure that right now, to avert similar instances coming up in the 4 years, that they have better management of water flows around that place so that there cannot be a replica of similar situations.
Finally, we saw you earlier with the area MP, Jane Kihara. Apart from the area MP, do we have any other political leadership there, probably from the county government?
The governor is yet to arrive here, but it is quite hectic. I presume even if she was to come here, she has to trek for quite some distance, because even the motorcycles are not getting access to go through, because everything is at standstill. Actually, it's just literally parking. And if any other people of whatever cadre in the government or leadership getting here, it is going to be quite hectic. Actually, it is easier now to fly in here other than to use any other way, because probably it is not just practically possible, not humanly possible for anyone to access here, unless you leave the car very far and then you walk in here. But the leadership of the day is said to be approaching this way, and that is also the KENHA to come and assess the situation on the road. And we're expecting other top leadership. And you remember to it, the deputy president is still in this county, where he's still holding a seminar with the government's commissions here in the country. And maybe, we do not know, no one knows, it could be a concern to his busy schedule, and you could find him here to try and assess the situation. That just remains as such as we wait to see what unfolds in subsequent hours.
All right. Thank you so much, Willie Dennis Njiru, for bringing us up to speed with what's happening in Mai Mahiu, and we'll be back to you in a short while for more updates from that end. Ladies and gentlemen, you're still watching Morning Cafe. Back in studio here, we have another conversation coming right up. Do stand by for that. Over to you now, Stanley.
All right, thank you, Fred. Now, the country has recently been experiencing flash floods that have so far claimed the lives of people, and even as that particular incident in Naivasha, as Willie Dennis was telling us. And this particular, on today's first aid segment, Andrew Wanjohi from St. John Ambulance joins us, just basically describing the best safety practices to avoid when it comes to drowning. Wanjohi, we've been seeing this over the recent times, the whole of last week, different parts of the country, and particularly the bone for this conversation today, when it comes to matters of flash flooding. We've seen different videos, people taking either on rivers, either just on a road that was in other days, on a dry day, would be really passable, but then you'd actually drown in that road. So we'd really want, you giving us the best practices when it comes to how do we avoid this. First of all, introductions.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Wanjohi from St. John Ambulance. I'm a first aid instructor, emergency responder. And Yes, basically, recently we've been looking at flash floods. We've been looking at flooding, basically. And in terms of when it comes to first aid, when it comes to safety and emergency response, what we look at is the safety of human beings first. We want to take care of ourselves as individuals, and then want to take care of our friends, our families, and such. And then now comes the property and such things. Okay. So when it comes to water incidents, safety is a key aspect, and especially for recently, because of the kind of flooding that we've been having, people get a bit confused and get a bit worked up and hysterical, and I can understand that. I'm sure everyone, even you and me, we have all experienced that kind of thing. So for us, we try to ensure and encourage people to keep calm and ensure that if you experience such a situation, think about keeping yourself safe first. Okay, keeping yourself safe, and then now keeping others safe, because when you are safe, you're able to take care of others. Right. Yes.
It would be prudent enough to also allow what we want to watch Nyumbani or wherever they're watching us from to also be part of this conversation.
Yes, yes.
The many questions they have. Yes. They've seen these videos as well, and they're wondering, what could I have done? Or someone who's just standing next to a road, on the roadside, and they're looking at someone drowning. What could they have done? 0795 045 864 is the number to call us live. We'll be taking all that, and Wanjohi will be answering all your questions. You probably have opinions or thoughts on this particular bit of topic on matters drowning. You can also tell us. You can also text us on WhatsApp 0793 267 279. We'll be reading all your questions and feedback later on. So first off, because you've really given us a wonderful kind of introduction on the same, but at what point do you know you're actually drowning?
As an individual, at what point would you know that you're drowning?
I mean, is it the fact that, because let's say you're probably walking on water, or water just, let's say washed your way, at what point do you actually know I'm actually drowning at this point?
The technical definition of drowning is when you inhale a liquid and you're unable to breathe. Okay. So the moment you discover that you're unable to breathe, that's when you know you are drowning. Okay. In terms of safety, the moment that you're going into water that is more than 1 foot from the ground, then that is a problem.
So for practical bits, and we'll be doing a lot of practical bits today, as you can see around us here. So I am on the surface of the ground.
Yes.
For example, at this point, what's 1 foot?
Kama wewe ni knee length. Ukiingia,
so knee length.
Unaona kama wewe ukivaa gambut inakufikia wapi?
Inanifikia kama alia.
Ikifunika gambut unajua iko shida.
Okay.
Yes. There is that should be a cause for concern for you. So we'd like to discourage you from getting into water that is more than that 1 foot high, and if you have to, then it is important that you don't go alone. There is something we call a buddy system. Try and ensure that you have someone who is able to take care of you, who you're able to take care of each other, basically. That's what I mean. So because most of the time maybe you're going into the water because maybe you're trying to rescue someone, and or you need to go across that water because where you are is not safe anymore. So it is for you to first assess the scenario. And if you are going to rescue a person, there is a process that we want to follow. If you want to rescue a person, ensure that as much as possible you stay on dry land. If you're able to. As much as possible, stay on dry land, or at least where there's no water, there's not much water. And then try to reach the person. If you're able to reach for the person, try to reach from...
With your hand?
Yes, with your hand. If you're able to reach them, try and reach them so that you can pull them out of the water.
Wouldn't that be the struggle? I mean, they're really fighting for their life and all that at this point?
That is why we are saying mkiwa wawili. Wewe uko na mwenzako maybe amekushika. Mwenzako amekushika na wewe unajaribu kufikia the person who is drowning. So you try to reach from the shore. That's the first thing. if you're able to. You know, sometimes it is just a process. It gets worse and worse and worse. So the person you're able to reach from the shore is not that badly off. So you're able to pull them out instead of recording them with your phone. Sindio, unajua shida ya Wakenya kila mtu ni reporter.
Citizen journalism.
So as much as you want to keep a record of everything.
Yes. For the views on TikTok.
Najua kila mtu anataka kuwa influencer. So beyond that, you should be concerned about your fellow human being. First, try to reach from the shore. If you're able to pull them out. Sasa kama mko wawili mnashikana, mtu ameshika hapa kwa waist, mwenye ako nyuma yako na wewe umeshikia the victim, unamvuta. Unamtoa nje. Sasa if you're unable to pull them out, they are maybe a bit far off. Do you have a stick that you can get? Get a stick, stretch it out. Vuta yeye na hiyo kijiti. Sasa if they are a bit far off and you have a rope, throw a rope to them. Sasa throw a rope to them. They're able to get a hold of the rope, anajivuta back to safety. Na pia wewe unamvuta back to safety. Sasa kama hauna, try and get a flotation device. What do you think would float easily?
What will float easily? Something plastic, something made of plastic?
Yes. Something plastic that is able to support the weight of that human being. Sawa, sikumrushia kikombe itamsaidia. So try and get something plastic. I don't know, maybe wood would be able to float sometimes. So try and get them something we call just a flotation device. Basically, that's something that could float that they can hold on. They can hold on to, and they can try to get themselves to somewhere safe.
Right. Let me have Junte here, for example, a hypothetical of Junte. Junte is going to be our dummy for today. And so Junte is about, how old? Let's say between 12 to 18 years age there. And because we've seen this a lot on social media, there was a matatu, you know, plying a particular route. And because the driver thought that he can actually bypass that road, as clever as he is, the vehicle also submerged. So we are trying to rescue Jonte, but then he is enclosed in a particular, in a space, but then he's drowning in it. You can't actually reach him out. What do you do?
Like for example, what we've been seeing recently, you find that matatu imeingia kwa maji, they are overconfident about whatever it is that they're doing, and then they fall into a ditch and people are trapped. There's a lot of chaos and such. First of all, we say that keep yourself safe. Try and get to a ground where you're able to, even if it is above the matatu umesema juu ya matatu unaweza kuvuta watu nje. You start with the people who are closest to the exit, the ones who are easiest to get out. Get them out haraka haraka. Alafu ndo sasa unafikia sasa wale wenye wako mbali. One by one, pole pole. We try to say take it slow, because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So unatoa one by one. Toa, weka. Toa, weka. The first priority is get them out of the danger area.
Good thing. Now we have Jonte out of the danger area.
Get them out of the danger
area. So for example, I rescued Jonte out of here. So practically, what do I do? He's really struggling to breathe and all that. So amekunywa maji na hiyo vitu yote.
So Jonte is out of the danger area. Sindio? His clothes are wet and such. Now you should know that wet clothes are still a danger because the wet clothes and the water is still a danger because it's cold. Inakuwaga baridi. It's cold. So the cold temperature inashukishaga temperature, it affects the body temperature, and that now affects things like circulation of blood and such. And that's something you're trying to avoid. But first, your priority is, of course, vile unaniambia, breathing. The casualty has inhaled water and such. So always remember your ABCs. ABCs is airway, breathing, and circulation. Ensure that the airway is open. Can I show you? So this is my casualty. I want to open the airway by tilting the head back and lifting the chin. Once I do that, I want to listen for breathing. I do that for up to 10 seconds. Is my casualty breathing? If they're not breathing, I'm going to send someone for help. Please call me an ambulance and such. Or call me someone who can take this person to a hospital. Once you do that, you're going to try, because they're not breathing, you're going to try and give them 5 rescue breaths. 5 rescue breaths, and then you check. So let me give him 5 breaths. You pinch the nose and blow directly into the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
As you do this, are you expecting water to be gushing out of the mouth?
Yes. I expect when I'm doing the 5 rescue breaths, if he starts coughing, that's a good sign that the lungs are able to expel the water.
The airway has opened.
Yes. So if you find that he starts to cough, even after the second breath, you don't need to get to 5. Even after the second breath, and he starts to cough, you need to turn him onto his side so that the fluid can drain out. Turn him onto his side, uangalie, observe if the fluid is draining out. Once it drains out, keep monitoring pulse and such. That's all. But if after 5 breaths there's still no coughing, unaendelea na chest compressions. Chest compressions sasa ndio process yote tunaita CPR.
Ile CPR,
So unaendelea na chest compressions, like 30 compressions. Just locate the center of the chest, interlock your fingers, and begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30. After 30 compressions, you give 2 breaths.
2 breaths.
So you keep repeating that process.
Typically, for you to do the 30, the CPR, then you come back to the
mouth to mouth, yes.
Yes. How long is this person? How long was Kevo in the water?
It's just the same scenario you've described me. You actually were watching them, and the vehicle got into the water, or whatever it is that they were, wherever they were, you saw them get into the water, and it is within a few minutes. It is not something that umepata huyu mtu. Like, for example, you woke up, you're going to work in the morning, and you find them lying on the road, and you don't know what happened.
Typically, because you said now for the few minutes, that's why I really want to pick your mind on, so that even the viewer can understand.
Yes.
I saw, let's say Kevo was there for like 5 minutes, inside and drowning in the water.
Yes, yes.
And then, you're doing the 30 CPRs. So after how long do you unaona hapa hivi I would need to do more.
Yeah. That is why the first thing that I asked you to do is send someone for help. How you're going to get this person to a hospital. Because the moment you recognize that this person has stopped breathing, they'll require a hospital, definitely. Anahitaji kwenda hospitali mahali. Sasa. So then ukiendelea na hii process, there are 2 scenarios you need to consider. Do you have multiple casualties? Or this is the only casualty? If you have multiple casualties, someone who's not breathing is probably not a big priority for you because you're not very sure about what is going to happen to them. You want to consider the others who are screaming and need help. So you are going to concentrate on those ones first.
On those who are screaming?
Yes, the people who are screaming, ensure that they are safe, wako sorted out. And then this person who's not breathing, ndio sasa utakuja kuendelea na yeye. Because if you spend too much time on the person who is unresponsive, not breathing, you are risking much more individuals, much more lives, many more lives there. Because those people require help, and maybe you're the only one who can help, ama mko wawili, you're the only ones who can help. So kwanza consider the people who are responding, who are able to talk, ama they have certain injuries, because injuries do occur even in flooding, bleeding and such things. First consider those things.
And get them to
safety. Treat those injuries, come and handle this other casualty who is not breathing.
Right, so a follow-up on what I had asked, the time limit, and one thing that a lot of viewers would be asking. So I was passing, around kwa barabara, and then I saw Kevo. Let's say, for example, Kevo's in his personal car, and it got submerged. So I am not sure how long Kevo has been in the water.
Yes.
So as an expert, how long is someone going to be drowning until they actually, what's the time limit until they actually pass away?
Now, what we're saying is that as a first aider, you're not allowed to say that someone has died and such things.
Yeah.
We don't like to consider all that.
Okay.
So when you follow...
Your first thought is coming to check if he's, without thinking if he is actually passed away.
Yeah, without thinking about all that.
Yeah.
Get him out of the water, get him to a dry area, get ni Jonte ama ni Kevo. Get Jonte into a dry area. Hii mguo yenye amevaa si tumesema it is a danger. Try and remove any wet clothing and keep them dry and keep them warm. That is why that nimeleta mablanketi and you cover them with something warm that you can get that is dry. Once you do that and you're doing this CPR, sindio? When it comes to such water incidents, because of the body temperature going very, very low, you are advised to do CPR until the casualty is warm. Until they get warm enough. If they are warm and they are still not breathing, that's when now you can say, this person is not alive.
So say actually Kevo anafaa kuona Jonte anafaa kuona blanketi tumefunika.
Unafaa kumemfunika, umedry, yani umetoa hizi nguo zote.
So tumfunike blanketi moja.
Tunamfunika because kuna kitu inaitwa hypothermia. Wacha tutaongelea hiyo kwanza. Tutaongelea. Wacha tuseme tumemtoa nguo. Tumemtoa nguo wet.
Okay, the wet clothes.
Yes.
If I don't have a blanket karibu
anything warm. The point is something that is dry and can keep them warm. That is the point.
Right.
That is, hiyo ndio kitu tunafaa tu kufikiria. Si lazima ikuwe blanketi, uko na jacket, uko na kitu yote tu unaweza mfunika, hata kama ni mtoi, kitu yote tu unaweza mfunika as long as it is dry and you can try and keep them warm enough to try unajaribu kuleta nini body temperature ipande. Yeah. What is our normal body temperature?
Inakuga
37 hapo.
Lakini unajua for hot guys like me inaweza kuwa
haiwezi kuwa zaidi ya 38. Sawa. So body temperature unataka ipande because ina improve. You know, someone when they are warm, it helps to improve the blood circulation and oxygen circulation. So to answer your question, how long you do chest compressions until your casualty is warm. Usually, healthcare professionals wataita do CPR until your casualty is warm and dead.
That's deep. Okay.
Yes, you can't. They probably won't declare this person having died if they're still cold because of the hypothermia and such. Mmemtoa kwa maji, lazima warm up, and when they're warm and their heart is still not pumping blood, then that then they're no longer with us.
Okay. Right. Still on the whole time duration, a very common question that you'd always pose to you as experts.
Yes.
How long do I need to be in water until I cannot actually breathe?
It doesn't take long, by the way. The moment that you're submerged in water and your mouth and your nose are underwater and you need to breathe in, that is a problem. It depends. For you it is different. It's different for everyone. Unajua kuna watu wenye athletic who are able to stay underwater for a very long time, for a very long period of time. Now for people, for infants, children and the elderly and the sickly and the frail, for them it is a very short period of time. Hata dakika moja itaisha. If they are submerged underwater, they are not able to breathe.
Okay.
So it varies from person to person,
right.
And the kind of health they have and how healthy they are, basically. That's what I'm talking about.
Fantastic. Now, Jonte amekuwa responsive, for example, umemwekea blanketi for a couple of minutes, he's become responsive.
Yes.
What do you do as a first aider? Show us.
If he's responsive, hii blanketi utatoa.
Okay.
Because you want to maintain warmth.
Right.
Si umeshatoa ile nguo baridi. So once they respond, they've started breathing.
A quick one before you continue. So for example, I'm not trained. I don't know the exact temperature should be about 37. So how do I actually know that he's actually warm enough?
You just touch the skin.
That's
ni hivyo tu, guza tu hapa. Do you feel any warmth? Okay. If they're still not warm, then just keep them warm.
Right.
So
back to Junte,
once they respond, they've started breathing and such, you're going to place them in the recovery position. Recovery position is just turning them on their side. Vile tu nilikuwa nimefanya.
Yeah.
So you're just going to turn them on their side if they're unresponsive still, and maintain and wait for help and such. Ama more observe. Sasa. We like to encourage people, if someone has been unresponsive because of drowning or whatever liquid or water incident, it is important that they visit a medical facility. Because if this person, kwanza tulianza na they were not breathing, that one definitely needs to go to hospital.
Yeah.
Ama you find someone was unresponsive, and they were unresponsive because they were maybe submerged in water for a bit of a few minutes, and sasa sahi uko na yeye, they still need to visit a hospital because kuna kugana aspects something called secondary drowning. Secondary drowning happens when there are inside the lungs kuna inflammations, zina swell. Kuna swelling huko ndani, and the lungs are unable to take in enough oxygen, so this person develops breathing difficulty. And that's not something you can detect hapa. It needs to get to a hospital where a healthcare professional can actually confirm that.
Right.
It's not something you can gauge from here. Ata regain consciousness, you still need to get them to a hospital.
Right.
But always make sure that you maintain warmth. Now, if they start talking, they're able to talk, they're able to answer questions, they're able to even swallow.
Yeah.
Give them soup, kama uko na soup. Something warm.
Also
to help maintain and raise their body temperature.
Right.
So give them soup, give them even tea and such to help elevate and maintain warm body temperature.
Another hypothetical. So, for example, Junte was inside this trapped area, and he was probably hit with a blunt object, maybe on his head, and it had him, lose his consciousness. Is that something that it's not, you can't really maybe see it just by looking at him by face value.
Okay.
How will you know some of these things?
First of all, when someone is unresponsive, there is not much you can tell without seeing. If you can't see blood or any swellings or anything, then you can't really tell if they have internal injuries. But from your question, if someone was hit on the head, what you want to feel their head. When you feel your head, hebu jaribu kuguza kichwa yako. Inakuwa, is it firm or is it soft?
Sitaki kusema niko na kichwa ngumu.
Uko na kichwa ngumu. So, it is firm, kawaida, naturally, sindio? But when you're doing maybe what we call a secondary assessment of your casualty,
right,
and you feel the head and you feel a soft spot, if you feel a soft spot that is not meant to be there, then you need to correct that.
Right.
Maybe that is an indicator that they may be having a head injury. And when it comes to a head injury, if they're unresponsive, the point is just to turn them on their side, something called the recovery position.
Okay.
Just turn them on their side as long as they keep breathing.
Right. So, I'm being told, as you come out, you can call, but then you can always call us live 0795 045 864 in case you have quite some burning questions on this. But when you're drowning, you've probably seen someone drowning and you're wondering, what could I have done in this kind of situation and all that. Or rather, we in Kenya right now, there are all incidences of flash floods and all that. So what do you do to be safe? Call us live right now, 0795 045 864. And Wanjohi will be answering your questions. So, tukiendelea right now, Jonte ako responsive and all that. Yeah. But let's say Jonte is actually a trained swimmer.
Okay.
So, hata akikuwa submerged pale, ndani ya maji, let's say it was a matatu and all that, he was able to get out of this and try to swim.
Yes.
What instances would make Jonte, despite him being a very well-trained swimmer, to actually drown?
Most obviously, inakuwaga injury. If he was in the water and got an injury, something ilimkata or something and caused him to start bleeding while in the water, that could contribute to drowning. Again, even if you're a strong swimmer, you can still inhale water. If you inhale too much water, you will lose your ability to swim. Again, in this kind of scenario where we have moving water, even if you're the strongest swimmer there, the moving water is a very big problem for you. So when you're trying to swim against current and such, there's exhaustion will get in. Yeah. And once exhaustion ikupate, you won't be able to swim to a safe environment. Right. And that's why we try to ensure that and encourage people that even if you're the strongest swimmer that there is, you spent your life maybe fishing or such things. Yeah. If it is in an environment that you're not used to, or if the water is more than what you're used to, you'd rather not get in. If you're able to avoid it, there's something we call the drowning chain of survival. Mm-hmm. The drowning chain of survival begins from a process of prevention. The first step in the chain is to prevent. Be careful in and around water.
Is it the fact that people panic immediately? They're in a lot of water, they don't know how to swim?
Yes.
One very good example is me. I am a very pathetic swimmer. I don't know how to swim. The first instance is to panic.
Yes.
What are the kind of disadvantages will panicking bring about when it comes to you in a lot of water? It's actually neck deep.
If you're not relaxed, because panicking causes a lot of tension. Yeah. Your muscles are tense and such. If you're not relaxed, you will sink faster. That's now the thing. Someone who is relaxed, you don't know how to swim. Mtu mwenye anajua kuswim anakuwa relaxed in water. Hata sali anataka kufloat. Utaona there is nothing that they are doing. They are completely relaxed. So and their body is able to float very easily on water.
I've never understood that advice. And it always sounds sort of good to advise someone in the swimming pool because it's yes. Secure and all that. Yeah. But then now, I mean, we've seen areas around Mathare, around Mukuru kwa Ruben and all that. Yeah. People, the houses are submerged in water. And this person hasn't yet drowned, but then they're really trying to swim and all that, maybe to rescue someone, maybe if it's a child, yes. or someone vulnerable, or just to actually take out their belongings. Yes. What will you tell this person in such a scenario?
I'll just repeat whatever we started by saying is ensure that wewe, as an individual, if you're trying to rescue someone, ensure that you are safe. Mm-hmm. Yourself, you are safe. You're able to see where you're going, right. and you're able to see where you're coming from. Okay. And it's always a good idea to try and map out various exit points and exit routes so that you can have options. And once you decide that you're going to get someone from a victim from water, for example, kama ni mtoto mdogo and such, najua when it comes to children, it's very difficult to tell someone to relax.
Oh yes, I mean now the fact that we've had Jonte here, you can also show us an example of baby Baby Maria, for example.
Yes, yes.
She's probably, let's say, 2 years old, and she's also, in the whole panic mode. She's really trying to, float and swim, but then she can't really, do that, and she's in the process of drowning. And you're looking at her. What do you do in this case?
Now, for children of such an age, below 2 years and such, infants, you just get them. Okay. It's important that you lift them up, support the head and neck. Now unamshikilia on the side and go to where you're going.
Okay.
Sasa, go to where you're going. Make sure that they're always on the side and they're able to breathe. In case they inhaled any water, it's able to drain out.
What if you're also in the water? She was in the water as well, and you're also in that water, and you're also trying to swim to a safer and higher ground.
Again, ni kumshikilia tu.
As you also try to swim that.
Just keep it as simple as possible. Okay. Usijaribu vitu mingi. Able to swim, mshikilia na mkono moja and try and get yourself to higher ground or safer ground. Pole pole. Peleka tu pole pole, one step at a time. If you're familiar with the terrain, nikikanyaga hapa, kuna shimo. Nikikanyaga pale, maybe inaweza kuwa it's a bit too deep.
Oh yes.
If you're able to grab maybe even a broom or a stick Enye mali unakanyaga, una test there. You test how deep it is. Do that. Step, unapima. Alafu unakanyaga unaenda. Kama umemshikilia. So, the priority is always first get to safety. And then now deal with the injuries or any medical conditions that they may be having.
Right.
So, safety, priority.
Right. So you're also telling us the kind of tips that if you probably... do you have a caller? James kutoka Vihiga. James, habari asubuhi?
Yes.
Yes, habari asubuhi. Hali ya Vihiga iko aje? Kuna floods huko ama...
Sisi tunashukuru Mungu hatuna floods.
Uko na maswali ya drowning ama maoni?
Maoni tu.
Tuongeleshe.
Sasa.
Yes, endelea.
Maoni.
Alafu
huyu anafanya kazi mzuri, wacha aendelee hivyo.
Oh, sawa. Aya. Remember when you're calling us live, switch off your TV. Si lazima ujisikie, or rather mute your TV or punguza volume and tell us where you're calling us from and be as audible as possible. Joe, he will be answering your questions live and the kind of questions that they may really have. Anasema unafanya kazi mzuri, endelea.
Shukran.
Yes. So back to the whole tips that you're giving us. These are things that we've seen on different kind of social media platforms. Someone was recording and, in different parts, either in Nairobi, Mukushuka, Ruben, Mathare, or even in Garissa. Yesterday, there was a whole boat, that submerged, and capsized in water. Over 20 people plus, drowned. There were people who are watching. They're actually sort of a foot far away from them. And so your expert advice to what, if you actually own that boat, what do you do? First off, you've told us, number one, panicking will really have you sink faster.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, you're talking about if I was on that boat.
Yeah.
If I was on that boat, I'd first try to save myself.
Okay.
And if I'm able to, mimi naweza swim si kama wewe.
But what will I do as someone who can't actually swim? And I'm seeing there's a lot of water, there's a lot, running currents, mbele yangu and all that.
Again, we know with flowing water in a river and such, there's really not much you can do.
Yeah.
You can't control, there are certain things that are beyond your control. If you're able to keep your head above water and maybe flow with the current to a safer area, go ahead and do that. If you try to swim against the current, again, you're saying someone is unable to swim. If you try to swim against the current, you will meet problems again. So just try and see where the water is taking you and try as much as possible to get to the sides of where you can see dry land. Try and, as much as possible, the nearest point there to get there. Again, this is nature. I can't really fight nature. So if the water is flowing, see where is it going. Am I able to get to a drier location or a location where I'm able to even keep my head above the water? Because the point is to keep your head above the water so that you can keep breathing. That is your priority.
Right.
Are you able to keep your head above the water so that you can keep breathing?
Right.
But if your nose and mouth are submerged, then we have a big problem.
There's something called defensive swimming. Does it also apply in all this kind of situation? How far can defensive swimming really help? You can also tell us about what defensive swimming applies to and what it actually means.
When it comes to defensive swimming, that's mostly a term that is used by professional swimmers and lifeguards and such.
Okay.
When they're talking about defensive swimming is maybe when they're going to rescue someone.
Right.
And if they're going to rescue someone and they find that this person is still conscious and they're still, wanagonga maji. There's a very high possibility that that person is going to also make you drown and pull you down with them. So someone who is like a defensive swimmer would probably go deeper where this person doesn't want to go and go somewhere where they'll go away from this person until this person starts to relax. And then they can approach them. They can approach them from a point where they cannot, the person who is drowning, they cannot see them, maybe from their back, and now can be able to pull them out. So the defensive swimming applies to you, the rescuer. Wewe mwenye una rescue, unaona mtu ana drown and you can't directly go with them because unaona mtu kama mimi na drown na wewe unakuja kunichukua and I'm unable to swim. I will definitely nitakushikilia kwa shingo. Na mimi nikikushikilia kwa shingo, na mimi nikushikilia kwa shingo mimi natoshana aje. Si tutazama tu sisi wote. So for that wewe itabidi sasa uni approach in a way that I am unable to see you. Ama if I do see you, you go to somewhere where I am afraid to go, which is usually just inside the water.
All right.
So that now you can come and get me out of the water safely without causing harm to yourself.
Do you think these are basic techniques, that the whole defensive kind of swimming, that if someone is living in some of these areas that are quite prone to flooding, that they should really learn?
Not just someone who's living in an area that is prone to flooding. Swimming is a basic, it's a skill that we should all have. Ni important to swim because unaona kama sahi the flooding has affected areas that were never affected by flooding before. Sindio? Someone who never knew that this would happen to them. Sindio? But if you had basic knowledge of or basic skill in terms of getting yourself to safety by swimming to a safer location, that could assist. So swimming is an important skill. The way we are promoting first aid as an important skill, and other skills that we promote. It is important for you to, as a person living, vile unasema, as a person living in a flood-prone area, uko unajua kuswim. Kama even if you're not in a flood-prone area, important
ujue kuswim. Right. So again, still on the whole kind of tips you're giving us on matters, the first aid ya kupatia mtu amedrown.
Yes.
Does a defibrillator come into play on all this?
Yes. Unfortunately, maybe in Kenya, a defibrillator is not very common in a mwananchi kind of setting.
Okay.
It is mostly common by healthcare professionals. Okay. But if you do have access to a defibrillator, as a first aider, there's something we call an automated external defibrillator. There are institutions that have them. In Kenya, mostly maybe hotels and areas where they deal with high flow of individuals and such, airports and such. So a defibrillator comes in the process of CPR, where when I was
So is it an alternative of CPR?
It is not an alternative of CPR. Okay. It is something that is used together with CPR. It is what is the opposite of alternative? It is used together with chest compressions and mouth ventilation.
Concurrently,
yes. It is an AED helps to support CPR in terms of improving the chances of survival. I talked about the chain of survival. There's a chain of survival for drowning and there's a chain of survival for CPR. The defibrillator comes in to improve the chances of survival for someone who is not breathing. Because the first thing in the chain of survival for CPR or for a casualty who's not breathing is to call for help immediately. You recognize the person who's not breathing. That's the first step. The next step is to start CPR immediately. Chest compressions and mouth ventilations. Begin that immediately. And then now the third step is the defibrillator comes in. Now a defibrillator, maybe I should tell the folks what a defibrillator does. Because maybe tumewauliza tunaongelea defibrillator na watu wajui ni nini. Sindio? A defibrillator is a machine that helps to restore normal heartbeat. Ni kama maybe vile umezoea gari yako battery imechapa na unataka kujump start. Something of the sort. So a defibrillator uses electric current to try and restore normal heartbeat, or try to stop abnormal heartbeat. Basically that is what the defibrillator does, using electric current. So if you have an AED or an automated external defibrillator, use it. It's the third link in the chain of survival. And then, of course, advanced medical care comes in the what we call the cardiac chain of survival. So that's where the AED comes in. It is not an alternative to CPR. In this whole process, the chest compressions are the most important.
Okay.
Yes.
You said 30 of them.
30 to 30, yani you keep alternating. You don't just stop at 30. You keep alternating 30 chest compressions, 2 mouth ventilations. 30 compressions, 2 ventilations. You keep doing that until either help arrives or the casualty starts to breathe on their own. Or you're even too exhausted to continue. Ukifanya chest compressions for too long without help or without passing the casualty to someone else, it will get to a point where you're too exhausted to continue.
Right. Back to Jonte, before we had the whole blanket on top of him. Is it standard to have a full check on his body?
Yes.
To ensure, because I mean, sorry. So Jonte was submerged in water that was, let's say 3 feet or even 4 feet above him. Or rather, he was actually fully submerged. And inside water, there's just a lot that happens. You had earlier mentioned about injuries that might happen, but that you might probably see or may not see.
Yes.
But then, all right, I'm being told we should be crossing all the way to Mai Mahiu, where correspondent Willie Dennis Njiru is. Willie, a very good morning to you, and also a good morning to the folks living around there. Give us the latest updates so far in that region.
Good morning, and indeed not so good morning for the locals of Mai Mahiu and Nakuru County at large, as we have been bringing to our viewers subsequent developments around here. It is not officially confirmed, but more than 20 bodies have been so far retrieved. Actually, the ambulance you hear behind me, there is some places just to my right side below where the storm waters just were flowing through, where actually most of these bodies have been retrieved. And the police vehicle that is here is going for bodies up to capacity of 8 and then bringing them. And you remember, still these bodies, we still have people who are taking care and managing them. But as you can see, I have 3 of those people who survived the incident, and I could ask them to kindly join us. Misongeni tu karibu hapa, and maybe we could hear from them what they have to tell us. Songa bele kidogo. Pole kwa mkasa. Nieleze jina lako na utueleze ilikuwaje. Angalia pale.
Naitwa William Lokai, na ilikuwa mwendo wa saa 9 hivi. Tumesikia maji kibomoa ukuta. Kujaribu kutoka maji ikatusukumia ndani ya nyumba. Sasa maji ikajaa ndani ya nyumba. Ilikuwa inatuzungusha hivi. Sasa tulikuwa na mandugu zangu, jana tu ndio wamekuja. Sasa wakapatana hiyo mkasa leo usiku. Sasa watoto tulikuwa tunawainua hivi, tukabomoa juu ya nyumba, tukawapitisha watoto huko na mama yao, tukapita sisi wote. Sasa wakati tumetokea huko tukakuta nyumba upande mmoja imebomolewa na watu wa hiyo room wameenda wote mpaka hii room nyingine tena. Sasa lakini mwenye alikuwa ameenda, kuna mmoja nilimuona. Lakini anasema ndugu yake alipotea. Yeye muone ndugu yake.
Kuna wengine umepoteza isipokuwa hawa?
Kwa nyumba yangu hakuna, wote wako. Kuna watoto 4 na mke, na huyu ni ndugu yangu, ni kasini yangu. Lakini tulisaidiana hawa kuwapitisha juu ya nyumba. Tulibomoa mabati, ndipo mabati ikanikata hapa hii kidole.
Wacha tusikie kutoka kwako. Karibia kidogo, nieleze jina lako na utueleze ilikuwaje. Nakushikia.
Naitwa Moses Loboshe. Kulikuwa tu na hiyo maneno yenye ilitokea jana. Hivyo venye sisi jana tulitoka kazi tukakuja kumtembelea kazini yangu. Sasa kufika usiku tukasikia tu pa mvua. Ile kujaribu kushungulia kwa mlango hivyo, nikienda kushika mtoto. Venye nishika mtoto kumweka kwa mkono, maji kanipiga ikanifinyia kiti. Sasa ndo nikageuza mtoto akaingia room nyingine. Viti zikanifinya, nikajingangana, nikajitoa kwa hiyo viti. Tukangangana, tukakaa hapo, ndo tukapata nafasi huko kazini yangu akabomoa mabati, ndo tukatisha watoto tukatoka. Ilikuwa hivyo.
Pole sana. Ndugu, nieleze akaunti yako ilikuwa vipi? Pole kwa mkasa.
Mimi naitwa John Lokai. Jana tumekuja hapa kwa ndugu yangu usiku. Tumekuja jioni, wakati tumelala usiku wa saa 9. Tukasikia maji imekuja kujaribu kushungulia hivi, maji imeshagonga kwa jirani, imebomoa. Majirani wamepiga nduru, hata hatuwaoni mali wako. Kisha maji ikaanza kuingia kwa nyumba yetu. Ikajaa kwa nyumba, ikatusukuma, ikatuinua juu mpaka tukapita juu ya mabati. Hapo ndipo sasa tulipata kuokolewa na hiyo nyumba.
Ni hayo tu.
Unalifahamu eneo hili, kulinyesha sana jana usiku kabla ya tukio ama ilikuwa vipi?
Kulinyesha mvua lakini ilikuwa nzito sana. Lakini sijui maji ilitoka wapi. Yeah. Yeah.
Asante sana. Stanley, if my camera person could just pan around, we have so many families around here, as you can see, who are not actually up to full with information of whereabouts of their relatives. And as you can see, they are just here skeptical of the situation, and perhaps they are optimistic that there could be some hope of whereabouts of their kin, because for those who have not found their kin, have had their way here to try and see maybe if they have been brought here or have been transferred elsewhere. As we have said there before, we have the information, which is not actually formal. Over 20 bodies have been retrieved, and the facilities here are actually quite too grim, and some of these bodies have had to be moved 34 kilometers to Naivasha, and just some other referrals are happening up above here where we have the Kijabe Hospital. And remember, that route to Kijabe is impassable because days ago, the bridge that connects Mai Mahiu through to Kijabe, through to the upper A104 road on the upper side, is totally impassable as it was cut. Speaking with in anonymity to one of the staff here, he told us we have had 61 patients being brought here, casualties for that matter, who have actually been taken ill, with 17 with critical injuries and have had to be referred to other facilities across the region, being Naivasha, Kijabe, for further medical checkups. As we are continuing on this bulletin, young locals here, youth, have had to take up the challenge to assist the other government agencies to retrieve the bodies. And as I have said to our viewers, that on the lower side of where exactly we are is where most of these bodies are being retrieved. And if my camera person could again just pan before I take it back to you, Stanley, on the upper side, nonetheless, it's quite sunny and we could have some rays. On that side is exactly where we are having, where we had so much storm water bursting and causing this similar replica of a scenario as we witnessed at Solai Dam, where water just smashed to homesteads. As at now, we do not actually have the exact number of homesteads that have been destroyed. We do not have exact numbers of casualties of those who have lost life. These are statistics that we are continuing to govern and collect. And remember, this place has very much of loose soil, and having so much of loose soil around this place, it has covered so many structures, so many things, so many households, and it is presumed that maybe some could have lost their lives and their bodies are just buried beneath the soil. So it is going to be an activity maybe that is going to take a few days to try and bring things to book, and maybe it is not going to be possible for any official information as at this time, or maybe today, of exactly what the situation is as at now here in Mai Mahiu in Naivasha, Nakuru County. Stanley, before I take it back to you, perhaps you could be having a question you could...
Most definitely, Willie. Before I let you go, there is an ongoing doctor's strike, and you've told us that those injured have been taken to that particular hospital. What is the situation in this place? I mean, you're having a huge number of people who are injured, and yet the doctors are still on strike.
Absolutely a very, very good question, and I must laud the medical fraternity around this place, because no one can actually tell if there is a doctor's strike. They have gone out. They are on to task. They are doing what they have to do best to save life and actually to take care of the locals here. They are up and about ensuring that all who need medical attention, they are doing that. But we also have CHVs who are also assisting in this besides the community that is around here. And actually, we must laud the effort that they have gone out of their way and out of their clarion call and quest for the government to aid to what they have to say, but they are here as and of when duty calls them to ensure that they manage the situation as it is, which is laudable. We laud their effort for doing this. Stanley?
Right, thank you. Thank you, Willie Dennis Njiru, for all those updates. More updates will be coming your way in our subsequent bulletins at 10 as well as 11 a.m. as well as 1 p.m. on that. Thank you very much. Willie Dennis Njiru will be getting back to you for more details, just to see what the police say, how the numbers will be changing of those who have been injured, as well as the number of those who have lost their lives. And I mean, the whole conversation is the same that you're having right here on the first aid. And well, before Willie Dennis, we had talked to Willie Dennis Njiru, just talking about how this whole flash floods and what you really need to know. And a huge, important detail to actually know what has been reflected on that. There's a whole issue we're talking about now, water, what to really expect on what, even swimming in water. But then there's a whole new angle of mud, the kind of loose soil that can actually be around this particular place. You can be a very good swimmer, but then this is loose soil you're talking about. Tell us more about that.
Okay, when it comes to things like mud and such, there's the aspect of beyond the inhalation of water, you can also inhale soil, which is now in mud. So,
and in solid particles as well.
Yes, those are solid particles. Yeah. So with that, you need to manage that person, because they'll be choking, and by when they're choking, I don't know if we've discussed choking before, but
oh yes,
how you
but you can definitely give us the tips.
How you handle choking is, first of all, you start by hitting their back, if you're able to. Unamgonga tu kwa mgongo mara 5. If that doesn't work, unajaribu kufinya tumbo mara kama 5. If they have inhaled any solid substances.
Does the rescue also, because earlier you're telling us that you're probably the two of you and you're trying to rescue someone in water, but then this is loose soil.
Yeah.
And even in the mud, I mean, it can really get sticky. Even trying to rescue this person, just pulling them out would really escalate to the both of you who are rescuing this person also getting submerged. As we wind up and as you give us your final thoughts.
Again, the process is the same. Try and get yourself to a safe location. Tulisema tunaanza na kijiti. You try and throw a rope. A rope is better because it's longer. Try and pull them out. Once you pull them out, get them to a safer location. See if they're breathing. If they're not breathing, do whatever it is that we just did. But if they're breathing, you look for injuries. Before we went to Mai Mahiu, you were talking about looking for other injuries that they have. Yes. And there's one of the victims there who has just said that alikatwa mpaka na mabati.
Oh yeah,
si ndio? With that, unajua need to find what those injuries are. And you find such a victim who has amekatwa na mabati and they are bleeding, you need to control the bleeding by just applying direct pressure. Unafunga tu na kitambaa ama kitu yoyote. Funga and then get to the next person. Okay. So don't just manage the breathing bit. You also need to look for other injuries that may have. Once you sort out the breathing aspect, look for other injuries that they may have affected them. And once you do that, now kuna sasa post-drowning care.
Okay. Right. Wanjohi, someone has listened to you the whole hour. They've loved your tips. But then how can they really reach out to St. John Ambulance? Provide us the number so that as we wrap it up.
Yes, our emergency contact number is 0721 225 285.
Okay.
0721 225 285. You can also reach us on our social media accounts, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at St. John Kenya.
At St. John Kenya. Asante sana. Asante sana, Andrew Wanjohi, first aid trainer at St. John Ambulance, for all these tips that you've given us. And more, this conversation continues on our digital platforms. What have you really learned today? What is the experience that you have garnered out there when it comes to matters drowning? This has been Morning Cafe. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyaringita. There's the breaking news just running below your screens. We'll be giving you that and more details as they unfold. Willie Dennis Njiru is in Mai Mahiu, kule Naivasha.